Means continuation of Board Bill number 1 to order. We have the wonderful people from Board of Public Service. Mr. Bradley,
Thank you.
take off.
Okay, you ready to go?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been doing this 3 days in a row. I forgot. I thought this was the same meeting. We have to take roll.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad.
Here.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Chairman Balmer.
Present.
5 present.
All right. We have, as far as excuse Alderman, I have notes from a few people, so we'll excuse them from this or after. A couple will be late. They're on the way.
Right.
We move for approval of minutes from yesterday's meeting.
We don't have it
Oh,
yet.
no minutes today? All right, thank you very much. No board bills for review is number 1, so now we will take off with Mr. Bradley.
Thank you. So, first of all, I brought a few people with me today, in case there's a
Please
question
introduce them for the.
that I certainly can't field. I'd like to introduce them just to make sure everybody's aware of who they are. So my right, Mike Seymour is the BPS, my executive assistant. I have Commissioner Chris Amos, Equipment Services, all the vehicles. Commissioner Rick Ernst, over all the building facility items. Superintendent of Soldiers Memorial, Linnea Magnuson. And then our newly acquired group of special events, Ann Chance, Director of Special Events. So if I can't answer a question, I would certainly like to be able to defer to them and get you whatever you need to do. So with your permission, I would like to walk through each division, give you the highlights, the lowlights, and then open it up for questions and try to get you what you need to get through this.
That's the format, thank you, sir.
Okay. So first of all, Department number 900, which is the President's Office. This current fiscal year, we had a budget of $2,554,749. The ENA recommended budget is $2,583,881, which is a $29,132 increase over last year, or a 1.12% increase. As far as personnel go, we currently have 47 employees in that division. We maintained 47 employees. We've had a couple moves inside the department, but in general, it maintains the exact amount of personnel that we currently have. So we're not,
I think there's a page mix up. It's
320.
Right on the right page now?
Yes.
Okay.
Page 320.
Sorry to interrupt, Rich.
okay. No problem, stop me anytime you like, please. And so the budget here is relatively flat from this current fiscal year in this division. A couple of items that have increased other than the personnel costs, which were $12,132 of the $29,000. There was a $7,000 increase in line 5648 membership fees, and that represents membership of folks in my department in 2 organizations. APWA, which is American Public Works Association, and NACTO, which is National Association of City Transportation Officials. Both of those groups were directed to be have a membership in from our organization by the mayor's office. They're national groups. We collaborate with them. We manage best practices with them. In fact, we just recently had a NACTO conference here in town. The idea is learn from everybody so we don't reinvent the wheel. So that represents $7,000 there. The other increase in that budget is 5620, which is major projects. It went from 40,000 to 50,000. And the major project line item, what that basically represents is emergency type repairs, whether we're fixing a roof or plumbing or something that just happens to come up that is unforeseen over the course of the year. More recently, we've had some bond funds put into that, but over the past years, this has helped us, make those typical repairs, and I will tell you guys, we spend every bit of that every year, so we certainly appreciate that fund. And those are the highlights of 900. So I would be glad to answer any questions on that.
We can go through if anyone, Alderman Davis, now here, Alderman Vaccaro, have any questions at this point?
I do actually, one, if my brain would work. The permit, the group that does the parties and whatnot, Ann Chance's group, did that get moved to you guys then?
You're talking about special events?
Special events?
Yes, special events moves to us.
And where's that at over here?
It is 9:14, so we'll get to that, but I'm not through it just yet.
Okay. That was my only question. I just
Okay.
thought it was odd they moved it.
Yeah, we're going, you, get into that later, because that was my question also, why special events is from public safety. All right, so, Alderwoman Howard's not here. Alderwoman Hubbard, any questions at this point?
No questions at this point regarding the budget. I just have one request. I hope that we can do a better job of communicating, things so we can move forward. Like, I brought up the situation about the cameras, and I've been making money for years, and it seems just like it's a hard process. It's almost always like a 18-month, 2-year process to get anything done, and I mean, our constituents don't understand stuff like that, so I just hope we can start expediting things a little faster, especially if aldermen have the money sitting there waiting to spend it. And it seems like the buck keeps getting passed back and forth. The mayor's office is saying, well, no, we didn't say we can't purchase any cameras. And who's saying it in BPS? So it's been a lot of back and forth, and everybody wants to buy these cameras to make our
Understand.
community safer.
So just to give you, and that comment is duly noted, and we will do our best to do better on that. We have successfully completed, just to kind of give you highlights on the cameras, and I thought that would come up. We have currently completed, we've completed 7 camera projects. We have 2 in progress and 2 currently in design. And then there are 2 projects right now. There are yourself and Alderwoman Middlebrook who are also requesting as well. So I think you requested a project back in like January maybe, and you were
It was
told.
like some months back, we met with the police department, and we determined where the cameras were going to be. And I'm just ready to move on. They just need to design. We determined where we need to tap into the fiber at Soldiers Memorial so that we can buy the proper
Sure.
cameras to
Understand.
do everything.
So what the timeframe is right now is about 3 to 4 weeks before Robert tells us what cameras we can buy. And then we will put those into the program and we will get moving on your design for you.
Okay, because the
Thank you.
mayor definitely mentioned that even though that they're in the process of buying more cameras, that shouldn't slow everything down. I guess citywide, they're looking to buy different cameras, I guess, 'cause, you know, they're so antiquated so fast. But she
Right.
said that things shouldn't stop.
Right, and they're not. We took everything off hold yesterday. We're moving forward. My folks will be in touch with you and we will move on your project.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
No further
Thank you very much. Alderman Murphy's not present. Alderman Spencer, Alderman Davis is, would you like to, at this point, anything? I know you just got here.
Just a brief comment. Rich, you know, we've talked in the past about our bidding process, and most especially the outcome and the dollar amounts for these projects. Is it possible that we could do an industry study for the types of work that we normally do, and we need to set parameters for how much we will accept on a bid? Because we have limited funds, and we'd like to be able to spend those funds in the best way possible. And you know, I'm too hands-on, and I did some stuff on my own. So we know there's a reality there. And so if there's some way that we could put some standards in place and not just take whatever anybody says, so that we can spend our money better.
So we could certainly look further into it. I just to make a comment back. And what typically happens is every time that a bid comes in, my staff reviews it for meeting all the compliance requirements of the city, such as prevailing wage, MWBE participation, all the things that are required, you know, the trainings, whether it's OSHA training or so forth. And so, you know, when you get into that with the prevailing wage, it usually kicks the cost up. I will tell you that, you know.
Not twice to 3 times with
Okay.
industry. And you know I know all of that, and I have a construction background. So when I go out and look for things, I'm looking for all of that.
Right.
So we just need to do a little better.
Sure. No good.
Okay.
That's duly noted. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alderman Muhammad, any questions? at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 liaisons split between 28 aldermen.
That's
Why
right.
only 2?
Well, I would love to have more, but the budget typically does not allow for that. So what I have is a programming and planning manager, and she works with the 2 liaisons, and we do, you know, our best to spread that out. I would love to have more. The budget just never has allowed for that.
I think that's something we need to look at. And someone just heard Alderman Vaccaro and the chairman say, so the Office of Special Events is now under your purview.
Yes.
Well, I would love to see that office cut and add, I'd rather see those two positions be two more public liaisons, because I can tell you, my public liaison, Donald, most of our public liaisons is absolutely perfect, and he is completely overworked, to my opinion. I would like to see more public liaisons to help us with our capital improvement projects, because when we do capital improvement, when we're spending this money, and it takes months and months before the money gets spent, it takes months and months before projects even start, and it's our residents who are asking, well, what's going on? So I would like to see more public liaisons. And while we're on special events, why did that office move from public safety?
Why did it move from public safety? My understanding is it was moved over to the BPS because their role, particularly all their permits and everything come through the Board of Public Service, and so through the Secretary's office, which is also under me. And it originally was under the Board of Public Service about 10 years ago. And so I don't know why it moved in the first place, but it seems to me like it came back home to where it should be.
Nice. I guess this would be a question for your facilities commissioner, or maybe you too. Resident, all the time, the city, we are a hound when it comes to building code. And I was at a community meeting a couple of Saturdays ago, and a resident asked me a question, is City Hall up to code?
Okay? So the building division does not report to me.
Right.
That's under public safety.
Right. Well, I'm asking because you have some type of influence when it comes to facilities of City Hall, right?
I do.
Is City Hall up to code?
City Hall, all city buildings, as a matter of fact, right?
Is City Hall up to code?
Okay.
I'm
And-
asking,
And so you're asking a question is whether we are up to code?
is City Hall up to code?
So, Rick?
Technically, yes, based on the age of the building. As we go through renovations and we do other aspects of work inside the building, we always file for permits with the building division, and those permits seek inspection and then release so that we maintain our code compliance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Also, I don't see that in here. How much do your guys, facilities, groundkeepers, what would be the maintenance workers, what would you call them?
We have skilled trade personnel, we have laborers, and we have custodial staff, besides a small amount of admin folks. And that
Right.
that varies depending on when the person came into service, as well as their grade.
What's the average salary?
I'd have to get back with you on that one, sir.
Just a ballpark figure if you could. Nothing formal.
Should be in there, right? They should be in there.
In your book, it should be on page 330.
330. So if you're looking for like carpenters, electricians, HVAC foremen, their salaries are all listed there. Electricians, painters, custodians.
So our custodians usually start around $12.50 an hour to start. And then the laborers are a little bit higher. And then our tradespeople have a starting salary based on their experience and like the DOT, whatever.
We don't have DOT requirements. You see, the bulk of our group is either skilled trade personnel, which are at a higher salary rate, pardon me for not having eye contact. And then the other portion are custodial and labor staff, which are at a lower salary rate. So it kind of skews the numbers. You'd have to kind of break it up into two parts to get two realistic pictures of an average salary.
And these are all salaries that were created by personnel.
Right. We have eight
Right.
total
The
positions.
established-
So they go by their grade levels and their experience and what they're doing. All right.
And so you currently have seven custodians and
For City Hall building, yes, sir.
4 electricians.
Nine. But it's really 9 total,
Okay.
7 custodians, 2 supervisors,
So
which are working.
$198,52. Let's say they're probably making around $31,000 each.
That sounds,
Have we ever, But I think you guys do a great job too. You guys do a fantastic job, especially the custodians. They are absolutely wonderful and they're always cheerful. It's something I always recognize. I wish we can get them more than $31,000. That's not a living wage. I know that's not directly under you.
Well, it is, but it would have to go through the Department of Personnel,
Yes.
and we
They
would
are
have to
civil
request
service,
that.
It's,
right.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Right.
And it's dictated by payroll ordinance.
Yeah, that's terrible. And I think they're overworked, but I guess with the budget, we can see why. They do a great job, Commissioner.
Thank you.
They do a great job, Mr. President. That's all the questions I have, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thanks for being here. Couple of quick questions, and not to pile on the camera question that was brought up, but I think a majority of residents and taxpayers know that process kind of rolls through the Board of Public Service.
That's right.
And is there an ability, because I think the most feedback I get is the length of time it takes. And is there an ability to, right, governing is prioritizing budgets often. Is there an ability to add more salaried employees? What would be a budget priority shift in order to expedite that process?
So, I would say this, that typically the Board of Public Service does public works contracting. We're a typical public works entity within the city, right? So cameras for us was a very big learning curve because we do bridges and concrete and sidewalks and playgrounds and all the things that everybody normally sees. So it's a relatively new and higher technology type item.
Yep.
And so what we had to do in order to expedite, and I'm giving you a little history so I can answer your question, is we had to hire a series of designers and a series of contractors because everybody, as Alderman Muhammad mentioned, 28 people wanted cameras at the same time. And so trying to get these things designed and figure out where everything goes and where the city fiber is. And so it is really a balancing act between us, ITSA, the chief technology officer in the police department, trying to get everybody happy with what we're putting out there. And so when the camera stuff was originally authored, they talked about everything had to be on fiber, which makes it relatively difficult to get in a lot of areas because fiber does not exist. It takes, all these server backbones in order to save everything for sunshine requests and so forth. So the big picture would be, is I suppose that if this was going to be an ongoing technology and we were really gonna do this correctly, there would be a division that handles simply designing cameras, and then they would give us the packages when they're ready, and then we would bid them out. We could assist them with it, but it's very specialized, just like the operation of the airport, just like the operation of the water division. It's a very specialized item that is, it's a tough deal.
Right. So like you have, obviously, Board of Public Service has on-call consultants.
We do.
Right? And is that located in the per performance employees? Is that in professional services in the line items here? Where would I find kind of
So,
the
the
nature
way
of that contract?
that works is that it is funded by the work capital funds. And so we hire them and we put a place marker in
I got
place
you.
for them, and then as the work capital money is spent on it, we pay them through that. So it is a work capital driven program.
Understood. Great. And would it be helpful if there was, because clearly I think the police department has preferred vendors that may or may not have already been put to bid that can specialize and help with camera installations
Right.
or the equipment that is purchased,
Right.
right? So preferred vendors that don't necessarily have to go through a Board of Public Service bid process. So if the police department was donated, call it $100,000, they can have cameras up sometimes in 30 days
So
because it doesn't run the bid process. And please don't misunderstand me.
No, I would say
Like,
this to you that.
This is taxpayer money, and I appreciate the process, and the process is of most
The
importance.
preferred vendor idea is okay for certain things that they do. If it's the, trash type cameras or very specialized things that don't get bid. Because the word capital cameras are in the public right of way.
Yep.
They should, by city charter and revised code, be bid through the Board of Public Service. And there has to be a very open and transparent process in doing that. So what we could do is, we could work with them and we could get a group of preferred vendors and then make those the ones that we're gonna bid, but there has to be at least 3, right? And then, particularly with them, that's what the issue was with the cameras. The cameras, they wanted specific cameras, obviously to communicate with their system.
Sure.
Took a lot of time to buy those and have manufactured, so, it's a pretty detailed process, but again, if it's in the public right of way, they need to be bid out through us.
I understand. That makes sense to me. Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Boyd, any questions at this point?
No, just cameras.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, any questions at this point?
No, thank you.
All right. No, and, yeah, the public safety, special events was my concern. I believe you answered that, is back where it belongs, is what you're saying. It sounds like the camera thing is we're catching up to speed, hopefully. And the learning curve is shortened. So we're catching up, and hopefully this will be a better process. So you can continue with your next step if you like, Rich.
Okay, thank you. So the next division I would like to handle would be division number 903, which is facilities management. And what you will see, and I'll just mention this ahead of time, with both 903 and 910 is there are two budgets for them. It is the regular city budget, and then it is the facilities and ESD police budgets. When local control happened 6 years ago, the budget division mandated that we prepare two separate budgets for each of those divisions in order to keep track of what is being spent so that there were not duplications in the police department. We have asked, and we're gonna continue to ask the budget division as respectfully as we can, that at some point we need to collapse those into one budget, because we utilize the people across the board. We are one division, and it is somewhat more tedious to manage two budgets rather than one. So facilities management 903, which is the city side, had a budget this year of $12,390,958. We have an ENA approved budget of $13,109,068, which represents a $718,110 increase, or 5.8% increase across the board. Of that $700,000 increase, $181,408 was for salaries. So alone, that was just salaries increases throughout the year. Some of the highlights in that particular budget were 5335 office and computer. We went from $0 to $5,000 simply because getting a line item from 5535 into the right budget. So 5535 went to 0. We moved it up to 5335. So it's really a wash. It just moved into a different line item. Then we would have 5637 public health and safety. Had about $100,000 increase, and basically what that is our contracts, which manage at 1520 Market Street building, and it was for contract cleaning and security services. It was escalation and living wage increases on both of those contracts, so that was a pretty straightforward increase. And then the final three increases on that budget were the largest by far. 5649 electric utility increased about $100,000. That was increased due to Ameren asking for a 7.8% rate increase this past year. 5649 gas increasing about $100,000, and that was from Spire having a PSC increase and projected overall 5%. 5491 steam, we increased about $100,000, and that was a 5% increase projected from Ashley Energy. And then 5649 sewer increased about $100,000. MSD projected a 4.59% increase. And then the one thing I neglected to mention was our personnel this year was 37. We increased to 38, and we asked for one plumber because that is one of our most critical items in 100-year-old buildings, and so budget was gracious enough to grant that for us. So that's kind of a snapshot for 903.
Okay, all right. Is there,
Would you like me to do the second one?
Yeah, just
And then
we'll
okay.
knock it out, and we'll have
Perfect.
questions.
No, that's fine. That's great. 90301, which is the police facilities management budget, have current budget $3,644,319, an ENA approved budget of $3,782,753, $138,434 increase, represents a 3.8% increase, of which about $20,000 of that was salaries, The only thing in that budget that increased, everything remained flat from the current year, other than electric, gas, steam, and sewer, which are the exact same increases I talked about in 903.
All right. Okay, so this, you're facing the same problem we all face with utilities.
Yes, we do.
All right, we'll go through for final questions to your presentation. Alderman Davis, any questions at all for on the next?
No, I just want to ask a question for clarity. When you talked about needing to merge those two budgets, and where the police department came under us, and who has the authority to make that change?
The
To say
budget director.
that, so we need to,
You have a meeting with the budget director?
yeah, because that needs to happen.
Ed's right behind you.
Well, just say it was this body that said they wanted to separate it so they could clearly see what was charged to each.
Was that done in an ordinance, not the?
I-
okay, I don't think so.
It was 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, I want to split.
Okay,
No, we need it now.
okay.
They're all one, we're all one family now. So, I think that that needs to happen. We don't need to do an ordinance for that.
No, I don't think so.
I think we can just talk to the budget director.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, anything else? Thank you, Alderman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro? He's not here, let's take advantage of that. Alderman Hubbard.
No question.
All right. And Alderman Murphy's present. Any questions of Mr.
No
Bradley?
question, I'm sorry, I have one personal question, but with that, you don't want us to ask.
No,
that.
this is strictly to the budget.
He knows what I'm gonna ask.
That needs, no, okay.
All right.
Go right ahead. Please.
Alderman Mohammed, any other questions before we close with Mr. Bradley?
I got it.
You gave me my cameras, thank you.
All right. Alderman Oldenburg, anything else you'd
No
like to
further
add?
questions.
Thank you very much. Alderman Boyd is not present at the moment. Alderman Clark Hubbard, no? All right. No questions. Rich, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for your work. Thank all your folks for coming in with you. Easy enough?
I still have
something else?
910.
Oh, I thought you were done with everything. Oh, I thought you were going through all of them.
No, I can go through the rest of them, and
Yeah.
you want me to hit them all at
Yeah,
once?
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
let me
yeah,
do
no,
that.
no.
Let me do that, then we can get questions out,
Okay.
okay. So 910, again, two budgets. The 910 equipment services budget for the city. This year, our budget was $11,562,059. The ENA approved budget, $12,132,764. Represents a $570,705 increase, 4.94% increase. 56,826 of that was attributable to salary. Our personnel stands currently at 71, and in the next fiscal year, we would be at 70, and that is, budget division eliminated a vacant fleet maintenance tech position 1. So that's why we went down one person. Notable items that are here, 5239, fleet support, increased, about $160,000. This is parts that are under $1,000, and so the parts escalation, due to the cost of steel increase, and we projected that to be an increase. 5439 fleet equipment, $13,295 to $93,295. That's parts over $1,000 and under $5,000. Again, parts escalation, and it was underfunded last year. We had to transfer money into it, so that's a more realistic number of what we need this year. 5635 office and computer increased about $40,000 for increased costs of software maintenance and subscription fees. 5646 education and training increased about $5,000. Trying to get training and membership for some new managers that we're gonna have upcoming due to some retirements. So in general, that is 910 city budget, and then I'll do the 910 police budget. The 910 police budget, currently $4,923,349. The ENA approved, recommended budget is $4,739,015. That represents a negative $192,434, so a 3.91% decrease in that budget. 62,403 of that was a transfer of an account clerk from the ESD group over to the supply division, and that was a result of a recommendation and some items that we found during the state audit. So that has solved that problem and worked out great for us, and we are saving money, which is a wonderful thing. 5246 and 91001 increased about $50,000, decreased about $50,000. That was due to the fact that we replaced ambulances. We have currently bought 8 ambulances, we have 5 on order, total of 13 new ambulances coming, so that capital expenditure has saved us on the maintenance side. 5539 fleet, went from 0 to 76,000. This is repairs over $5,000, major component repairs at the Laclede Garage. Our staff over there is now doing in-house engine and transmission replacements, and so we don't have to outsource them, and so we're saving money on that, so it's an increase in another line item to increase that. And then 5639 fleet services decreased about $150,000, again, because of replacing ambulances above. So 49 people staff there, 48 next year, transfer an account clerk to supply. So that's a pretty good story. We save money, right? The 930, which is Soldiers Memorial, as everyone is aware of here, we signed an agreement with the History Museum. We had a private donor come in. They did about a $30+ million renovation of memorial. It opened, and they are operating the memorial. By the agreement and by ordinance, I still have a staff of 2, which is Linnea and Vernon Ambus. They were written into the agreement. They are the city's liaisons over the building. They keep an eye on the agreement. They make sure the 6,000 artifacts are properly taken care of, that everything is happening over there is, within the agreement that we signed. So the current budget there was $126,822. The new budget is $129,198, and that's a $2,376 increase, 1.87%, and that is all in salary increases from annual increase. Okay? And then last but not least is 914, which is the special events office, which is new to my office this year. Their budget is $202,000. I do not have any data from last year because I didn't manage them. It basically consists of 2 individuals, Ann Chance and Kathy Best, who manage that office. The lion's share of that $202,000 is salaries, and there's a sprinkling of about $1,500 for miscellaneous materials and supplies. So the majority of it is the personnel that manage that office. So now I've covered everything.
Didn't mean to rush.
Wow.
All right, thank you very much. And to close out, Alderman Davis, any questions on the?
No.
Okay. All right, and we'll go through Alderman Carl. Any questions at this point
Just,
before we close out?
I keep seeing stuff and I certainly don't know anything about it, but are they still having a lot of union trouble over at Soldier Memorial? Wasn't there like builders coming in from out of town to do it? Maybe I'm misreading this.
I don't know.
Yes. I don't know why.
During the construction of soldiers, was there any union trouble?
Oh, during the construction of soldiers, were there union contractors?
No, it seemed to me that I was reading, and maybe I'm way off. That a lot of the people doing the work were from out of town. Maybe I was misled.
I'm not aware of that.
Maybe
I'm
Linnea.
not aware of that.
I could have been misled.
Well, we didn't have any problems with that.
No, I don't remember seeing any problems with
I'm
that.
sorry, I'm not aware of
No,
that.
that thing was,
And I could have been misled. Somebody
to
talked
me,
to me
it's
about it.
first class and everything over there is beautiful. Great job.
Cool. Well, again, I thought I'd ask. And again, somebody mentioned something to me and I just thought it'd be worth asking.
All right, Alderman Howard, any comments or questions?
No,
All right,
I'm very pleased with the service,
Right.
Board of Public Service.
Alderman Hubbard, last chance.
No questions, just a comment, and I think several of my colleagues are echoing this. Some people probably won't say this publicly, but I will. You all do an awesome job, but I see a lot of top heaviness in some of these salaries, and I'll just be perfectly honest about that. When you look at, like, a budget of like 200 and some thousand, it's like only 2 employees, like, woo, what kind of job are people doing? It's a lot, and I'll say this, I mean, I'm not one to try to dig and chop and all of this stuff, but I think in the best interest of the city, we probably need to reevaluate how we do some things. And that's my commentation on
Noted.
it. No further questions.
Alderman Murphy, any comments or
No,
questions?
that would be my concern.
All right, okay. Alderman Mohammed, oh, okay, you can see Alderman, maybe it's Alderwoman all the time.
It is.
Alderman
I'll take
Mohammed,
it
any
from-
questions?
You guys do a great job. I'm just real slow on the process when it comes to capital improvement, I understand that. But I share the same sentiments about the Office of Special Events. Actually, I tried to cut this office last year when it was under public safety. And just to be transparent, I'm going to try to cut it again if the committee members will go with me. I just think it is a waste of taxpayers' money.
Okay. Finish?
Not to slight the work that you guys do. Not to slight the work that you guys do. But
do it if we're not there? We'll figure it out.
one person can do this.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Seriously, one person can do this. 95,000. You're getting a raise from $94,000. 94,380 to 95. Come on, no, no. And you supervise one employee, and your job is to communicate with different department heads when we do special events.
Yes.
Not in disrespect to your job duties, but this is not an effective use of taxpayers' dollars. This is not it. If I invite you to my ward, I guarantee you, you cannot justify why you will make $95,000 to people who make $30,000 in a disenfranchised community. And not when every time we want something in North St. Louis, we hear the same story from the city. We don't have the money, but we spending $95,000 on a salary, and you supervise one employee. And your secretary makes more than our secretaries at the Board of Aldermen. And they just assist one person. Our secretaries assist several. It's a slap in the face, not only to St. Louis City
Not
residents,
several, 4 to 6.
several varies. It feels like several to them, I bet. It's a slap in the face not only to taxpayers, but it's a slap in the face to city employees who can't make a living wage, including the guys that are under you, Commissioner. This isn't fair to me. I hope the committee will go with me when I try to cut this office. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
So, can I just?
You comment, sir?
Real quick, I don't want to talk about the salary end of it, because again, it's a new office to me, and the Department of Personnel sets that, but, you know, what I see the Office of Special Events does, just from my perspective, is they schedule and get all these events to happen here in the city every week, or 3 times a week, or whatever, and so at the end of the day, I think what it does is it gets people to come here and do things and increases tourism and brings in tax dollars and things along those lines. I mean, I certainly don't want to get in the trenches arguing about salary, but I believe that they do serve a very important purpose in, you know, what they do as far as getting all these things to come to town. Other than the Special Events Office, the city is not staffed with anybody that would be able to coordinate that. In fact, I think it'd be a relatively broken process if we didn't have a person or two coordinating that.
Thank you very
Just a question, just a follow-up question. Again, you mentioned convention and tourism. Can a director of convention and tourism coordinate these events?
Can they what?
Can a director of convention and tourism coordinate these events? Would they be equipped to?
Kind of direct convention and tourism.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
I don't know that
Joe,
there's such
could
an
I
office.
follow?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I,
Well,
I don't follow.
well, okay, we're gonna stay germane to the budget right now. We're talking about something that he's wanting to do in the future.
That's fine, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so let's,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
to be fair, as you are deliberating on things, you indicated that you had no information on that department because it just came to you. And so if we're going to be deliberating on that department, it would only be fair that you send some documentation based on the performance of the department.
Right.
Well, and I would prefer to have for the last 2 years. And so you have some indication of, you know, exactly what is performed there. So everybody has more clarity.
okay.
We can certainly provide that. I will meet with the Director of Public Safety, Judge Edwards, and
Yes, sir.
Get that information for you and provide you some layout of what they've done, what they've accomplished, those type of things. Sure. Sure,
Have it is, Rick.
absolutely.
All right, since it's a transitional thing, he's been on everyone's mind, we'll attempt that in the future. All right, Alderman Oldenburg,
No further questions. Thanks for all your work.
Alderman Boyd,
Nope.
Alderman Clark Hubbard,
No questions, thank you.
And no, again, I'll thank you again for your presentation, and we'll jump off all these other bridges in the future. Thank you. You gonna stretch your legs? We'll take a moment break, and then we'll have the public safety director come in.
I hear the council.
Yes.
So the camera.
All right, TV guys, turn the cameras on and let's have some fun.
I like fun, Mr. Chairman.
They could just hire a secretary for 40
Exactly. All right.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson Volmer and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I thought what we would do so that we're able to be a little bit more efficient is to address my smaller departments first, get them in and get them out. And so they'll come in the following order. They'll come first, Excise Division, Civilian Oversight Board. I will handle that, which will be number 2. City Emergency Management then will follow. After that will be our Neighborhood Stabilization Group, and then our Corrections, our Building, our Fire, and then finally the Police Department. And so the heavy lifting will be on the back end of this meeting.
Perfect.
All right, thank you very much. So if you're building, fire, police, you guys can just step outside, give a little room in here until we get to that.
We won't talk about you, we promise.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, we'll go with excise.
Close to my heart.
That will be, that will be 616.
616.
229?
229.
All right, everybody ready?
Yeah, there you are.
There we go.
All right, 1010, 616. Our excise commissioner is Miles.
Yes, sir, my name is Miles McDonald, I'm the excise commissioner. Our budget's pretty small, and it's gotten a little bit smaller, it looks like. But what I would like to address are the issues on the, let me see, on the non-capital equipment. We requested the replacement of 3 cars for the they're not new cars, they'd be in the fleet, serviceable automobiles for the sum of $36,000. I think that's probably, there's a trouble with getting replacement parts for them, and when cars get as old as these are, I think we have some safety issues with them. I don't have one myself, but we have 3 allocated for agents in the office. We have 1 opening. The other thing that I put in a request for was to get the money put back into the budget. It's a little over $4,000, I believe, for the computer system in our office. I'd also like to get another liquor control officer, but they said that's a perennial request every year, and it's never met, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yes, sir, our strategy here is to ask for a whole lot of stuff, and maybe you guys don't cut anything, I guess. All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, any questions?
We can go through all of them. Davis, any questions of Commissioner McDonald?
First, I'm going to give a comment, and then I'll ask a couple of questions. It's been very quiet in the office. I appreciate that. I don't get a lot of phone calls or requests to undo something that's been done.
Yes, ma'am.
And so thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your comments.
But I do want to talk about, I know I've been trying to get you an additional officer for 10 years. And as we continue to grow in the city and we have all these expectations for things to be handled properly, you do need another officer. There's no ifs and buts about it. And what most people don't understand is how we affect new businesses that are starting too. Some of the things that need to happen in order for them to get their license and things. I remember one year, we were the day before the opening of the ballpark. in order to get all the licenses in place and everything that needs to be happening. So we need to do better if we want to try to encourage people to come here and create business. So whatever it is that you need to send us to help us, think about and encourage that opportunity, please do that.
Thank you.
And then the last thing is, when you talked about your cars, are you leasing your cars?
No, ma'am, they come out of, I believe they call it Fleet Services.
I've talked about that ever since I've been here because it costs too much money to do cars that way. We need to have an ongoing lease operation because once you get into repairing cars, you just throw money out the window. And we should never be in that position. Leasing cars gives you the warranty on it, so you're not spending money. It also gives you the opportunity to turn that car in and start with a new lease in 3 years. And it gives you the safety factor that you talked about, having a good car on the street. And you just save a ton of money. I took over $1 million out of the school district budget just because of raggedy cars and people spending $7,000 to put a transmission in a car that's 10 or 12 years old. So think about that, and hopefully the whole city could go that route.
Thank you.
All right. Alderman Vaccaro, any questions of Richard?
I do actually. So, you have 2 liquor control agents, it looks like they make roughly about $30,000 a year?
Yes, sir, it was recently increased, Alderman, to about, from almost 31,000 to about 36,000.
Because 2 of them split 71,000, you'd ask for 107 for the 2? If I'm reading this right, it
Yeah,
says
I
that you
think that
requested
would've been- That
107?
would have probably been in anticipation of another one.
Okay, and, well, no, I don't.
Well, we
I
asked
just
for another one.
wonder why you don't have.
Right.
I mean, you're giving these guys all kinds of authority, and then you're gonna pay them like 30,000 a year? I think, not only do I think we need to find another one, but we need to pay these guys a reasonable salary. Because, I don't know. I just think I wouldn't do it for 30,000. And then again, you're giving somebody a lot of authority and no pay to go with it. I mean, I think that's.
It opens up doors to a lot of things
Oh,
when you get real low pay.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it opens up doors to corruption. I'm not saying there are, but it does.
You can.
It can. And I think you guys do a good job, and I appreciate it. I've been up there and argued with you on stuff. But we always seem to come to an agreement. I'm fine. I'm looking at that salary, and Alderman Muhammad's brought it up. It's ridiculous low salaries we're willing to pay people.
Alderman Howard?
Yes, I heard you speak 2 things. The cars that you're speaking of, those are cars that are actually in the fleet, but they're transferring over to excise? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
well, they're in
You're
the fleet,
asking-
but they're assigned to excise, but they're getting to a point where they're no longer really cost effective to operate because they have to be repaired constantly. And my own opinion, I'm not a mechanic, I think they're getting to the age where they're maybe not, they may have some safety issues coming.
How old are they? Do you
I
know?
think they're like 03s.
Oh, 3.
Yeah.
03s or 06s.
So how many vehicles do you have?
3.
3? And you're asking for the allocation of $36,000 to replace all 3?
3 newer ones. In better
That would be
shape.
enough to replace all 3 vehicles?
I think not new, but newer.
No, not newer.
Okay, I was of the opinion these were already in the fleet and we were transferring them from somewhere else to this. No?
These are old fleet cars that get assigned to Exxon,
Okay, so he's asking for newer ones.
2007.
So he's asking for
They'll be
newer
new to
cars
him.
that already have 100,000 miles, but they'll be new to him. Okay, okay. I was just wondering, because I don't know where you're gonna get 3 cars for $36,000.
Right, you're lucky you get one.
I was like, yeah, when you find those, let me know. And then on your assignment of liquor control officers, you're asking for an additional one. Is the problem that you can't, it's hard to find somebody to hire, or is it the budget that keeps you from
Well,
hiring?
it's not hard to find somebody to take the job, it's hard to find somebody to keep the job. Because we've had
Because
a
of
lot
the
of,
pay.
a heck of a turnover since
Yeah.
I've been there that long.
It's very, very difficult to, as you well know, that we're constrained by residency, and we don't have the ability to go outside. Alderman Collins Muhammad, we don't have the ability to go outside and to be able to recruit people that are competent. We don't pay a lot of money. We need to pay everybody more money. And unfortunately, we are confronted with low pay and just trying to find folk within the confines of the city to take these jobs. So it's not unique to excise, it's unique to my entire public safety area. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that more.
So, one more question. You are asking 107 to pay your 2 officers, or is that for 3?
That's for 3.
Yeah, it's the-
And does that include benefits also?
No,
No.
The line item detail, that's just the schedule
Okay,
of
that's
personnel.
just- okay.
The line item details in the other
Right,
5,100.
I got you. Okay,
All right.
all right. That's all I needed to
Thank you,
know.
Alderwoman. Alderwoman Hubbard.
I would just like to echo what all of my colleagues have said, and for us to try to do whatever we can do to get you the additional support you need. And we definitely need to bump up those salaries, because that's a real life situation when you have people in those important capacities like that and you aren't even paying them enough money, then things can get kind of sketchy, and I think we definitely need to try to find some money for that. And lastly, in my 8 years of being here, I have only been to 2 excise hearings, and usually when I go, it's because some crazy stuff is going on. And I just want to thank you for always being fair and above board, and not succumbing to some of the pressures of some people that like to place their values on other people. And every time I've encountered you, you have been fair and just did things the right way, and I appreciate that, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you, Alderwoman, I appreciate it also. And I'll convey your thoughts to the staff.
Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman Murphy.
Yeah, same here. I said everything going smoothly and
Thank you.
all my bars and bar restaurants and whatnot. 2 questions. The cars that you're talking about need to be, they're maintained by the city garage, right? Like other city cars are?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're not being maintained by anybody else. So we do that with police cars and all sorts of things, right?
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. We don't lease any cars at this, because we have a garage that maintains them, I guess. Okay. And would you expound on the 4,000 that we took away from you or something for computers?
That
What
was, we asked for, let me see what it is here. We asked for, I think, I got it highlighted on one of these.
I wasn't.
5434.
Yeah.
Here you go, right here.
Asked for 6,567.
You're right here. Right. Nine copies.
Right, we asked for $6,567, and we got 4,000 less. And I asked to get that reinstated because our equipment is getting dated.
Okay, so you want the 4 reinstated to update your
Yes,
system?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
Alderwoman.
All right, thank you very much, and we go to Alderman Muhammad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have no questions, but I have one. Just for transparency, can you expound on all the duties that your office has?
Well, it's primarily, it's focused on licensing the people and keeping track of all the licenses. That gets to be a little bit difficult sometimes if you get a big event. If people come in and want to get, temporary permits, and you got to kind of address that immediately. So that's pretty much one at certain particular times.
So let me just elaborate just a little bit. I don't know how much you guys know about Miles. Miles is an attorney, spent time at the state level in liquor control. He is required to conduct all of the hearings. And so he has an administrative judicial responsibility as well. And so he's vested with a lot of responsibilities. I expect a lot of ethics and morality and traditional stuff out of him. And I I appreciate the comments that you guys have made with respect to his diligence and his work ethic. So thank you very much. I didn't know if you guys realize that I like lawyers. I'm surrounded by a lot of lawyers, and I appreciate that.
Thank
All right.
you, Judge.
And that's why I asked that question, because when I look, oftentimes we talk about how people are paid too much. In this case, I don't think you're paid enough. I think when you look across the state, when it comes to major metropolitan areas, their liquor commissions are over $100,000.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
with your job description. Here in the city.
Right.
With all
Yeah,
the corner
I
stores
agree
and
with
big
you. I don't
stores
think I'm
we
paying
have.
enough either.
All right.
Brown bags.
I think you deserve more action. I think you do a great job too.
Thank you, sir.
And so you need an extra $4,000 for computer and technology equipment.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure we could take that from somewhere.
Okay. Any further questions or comments, sir?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Yes.
He's putting his degree to work there, be careful.
No, first I would echo, not to turn it into a complete love fest, but I would echo the way that you do operate that office with sophistication and professionalism, and it's run like a Swiss clock. And I know that the residents and the businesses in my part of town do appreciate that and the interaction they have with your office. I have just a couple of quick questions around, it sounded like there was questions around, and your request of adding potentially a new liquor control officer, often and/or paying them and/or your staff more. Often, the follow-up question to that is, well, what do the taxpayers get as a result of that? So, is there something tangible or a schedule you can point to of, if adding an additional officer and an increase in salaries, would that help with volume load? Would it result in quicker hearings? Would it result in more efficiency, quicker review of applications? And if you could point to a few of the things that additional officer would get the average taxpayer, the citizen, or the business in the city would be helpful.
I think it would, Alderman, in terms of the timeliness of the hearings. Each application has to be investigated in terms of like the neighborhood signatures and background checks, these types of things. That takes a while. It was running at one time over 5 weeks. I think we've cut it back from there, maybe about 4 weeks, I believe. And that would be a big help in getting that done, because those investigations are done by the liquor control officer.
Corroborating
Right.
signatures.
Exactly. And we could get, if we could get another officer, and we have 3, we have more people out on the street. You can't expect somebody to work Friday and Saturday nights out on the street with the police, or by maybe a couple of them together. I don't want anybody out there by themselves.
Sure.
And,
That also makes sense.
if that's the case, you can't really expect them then to come in and work from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday the following week. So we got to make some adjustments there. The other issue that's going to come up there, and it's going to require more money, I think, that we're going to have to do with the authority conferred on these officers by the Board of Aldermen. We're going to have to have some organized training for them, because they're authorized to be armed and to issue summonses for city ordinance violations. In some cases, they actually try to hold people until the police can get there and make a custodial arrest. But you really, when you have somebody out there with a gun, they have to be trained.
Sure.
You can't.
And right now, that's not our practice. Our practice is not to put them in harm's way.
Yes, right.
And so my expectation, if there is an issue, that you call the police and you allow the police to handle the issue.
Just next question, I don't see it in the line item, but maybe we can shed some light. Do you ever use outside contracts or professional services?
Yes, sir, Alderman, we do. When they use an organization, it's part of the Rutgers group, it's called CLEAR. It's for getting to the, kind of checking out the applicants. It gives you pretty much their whole profile.
Gotcha.
It stops you from having 2 people walk throughout the neighborhood and talk to people. You can get it, It's a real-time clarification of what their qualifications are. And then we have some money.
But that's more data, right? That's a
Right.
payment of data, okay.
And then we have some money assigned for a hearing officer, but we haven't really done that in a long time. Like the judge said, I'm a lawyer, and,
Right.
you know, I don't propose to, or purport myself to be a judge, but I know enough about it where I can conduct a hearing.
Good. Okay.
No further questions?
No further questions, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Boyd.
Okay, two words come in mind when I hear you talk about your department, humble and efficient, because you are both. You do very well to me. But I think, and I don't know if we can do that, and maybe some of the senior audit people could kind of help me, to have personnel reevaluate the positions that you all have and in regards to the salary. Because it's, to me, it's embarrassing as an elected official and you're an attorney and the dollars that you make is unrealistic. That's not even making sense. And so with your officers, also with the responsibilities that you all are putting on them, we kind of walking on eggshells to make sure things are where they need to be. On the cars, and that's why I'm saying humble, because you like, I just wanted 2007. And so I agree with Alderman Davis. We need to look at leasing and quit being so humble and say, I want a 2020. Because 2007, the way you all are using, it's not going to hold up either. So we need to look at leasing the cars so they're constantly taken care of, and then we're not running cars to the ground where the safety of our employees are at risk. So thank you for what you're doing. But I hear about the computer system, and through the city, for all departments, they keep talking about computer systems, and I don't think people realize the impact that how we are as a city are not up to date in regards to computerizing our city, and so that's hindering you in regards to doing the job that you all need to do. So I agree with my colleagues, we need to look at how to give you more dollars to do the work that's needed to be done. Since we have so many bars and stuff coming in, and that's putting double work on you guys, so we need to look at how we can assist you.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you, yes, sir.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Clark Hubbard.
I did the little train. Thank you so much for everything you've done. And just to make sure I'm clear, because I know we deal by line item, which, the organized training that you spoke about, so would that go under education and training, or would it go under the, okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Everyone knows I've known Miles for quite some time.
Yes, sir.
As a state agent, as a city agent. And when you took that office over, am I not correct that most of the things are just on index cards still, that you were going through? And
Kind
so
of,
you,
yes, sir.
you know, not to, again, make it sound like we all love you more than anything in the world, but you've done a lot with what that office was, and not to disparage the farmer.
Well, thank you,
It
Mr.
was-
Chairman. Would you spread that around, please?
But, and questions, now, these two officers that you have, are they, overtime is available to them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as the police department is doing now, with the unspent money for the position, that's being used for overtime to compensate these, or is it
No, I
not?
don't
No,
particularly.
not out of the police.
Well, not, but the way the police are doing it.
Yeah, similar.
Okay, similar to that. Okay, and as far as, the other is, we're talking about giving these officers a raise, and you have, would they perform better with a raise as two officers doing a better job? You know, splitting up the 107 and buying computer system with that money, but you need three officers no matter what, is what you feel? If this guy's all of a sudden got a $10,000 a year raise, would they be doing a better job?
I would hope so.
Yeah, but that's not
But,
guaranteed.
I mean,
Okay, I just, you know, as you look at the numbers, you have money that's sitting there doing nothing. But, because when's the last time we had three officers at all, since?
yeah, we just, we need people, and I
Yeah,
think,
well,
I think a
okay,
minimum.
that's the main question.
A minimum
All right,
of three.
okay, that's fine. All right, Miles, thank you. And hopefully everything in my place is doing well for you also.
You do an excellent job, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else for Miles? Thank you all very much. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
No, thank you very much.
I'd like to turn very quickly to special events to make sure that there are no questions with respect to special events. That would be under 614. Special events is zeroed out, so I would imagine that.
Yeah, well, we just had BPS through here, and you're gonna be getting a request for the last 2 years' performance or so from special events, so we can coordinate and see what's going on. You know, they weren't able to expound on what they had done in the past. So if we get a report from you in regard to special events last 2 years, the performance of because Mr. Bradley didn't have any records for them to
I'll
say
be
how they
happy to provide that to
Okay.
this committee. Thank you.
All right, so we can move on to the next item then.
All right, we'll move on now to civilian oversight, which will be 635. I apologize that Nicole Barton is not here. Again, it's one of the smaller divisions, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Who's gonna start with questions, or?
We can just go with questions, because the department itself is so
Yeah,
new.
sure, small. All right, if there's no further, we'll open it to questions. Alderman Davis?
I just want to give a brief comment. The department is somewhat new. Is this the second year or the third year? Second year?
This budget will be going into the third year.
Into the third year, okay. So we do know that we did have a report that was sent to the Board of Aldermen last year. It was brief, but not a lot had been done at that point. Spent most of the time getting organized, making sure that we knew how the operations were going to be. And so now we're at a different point. And I think it's just important that you keep us apprised of what's going on through that department. Most especially keeping something on our public sites, because the public needs to be more informed about that operation. We don't always read everything, but there are a lot of people in the public who do. And so I think it would really be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I can tell you that the Civilian Oversight Board is very transparent, puts out a lot of information. You gave it subpoena powers that we supported wholeheartedly. It has not used those subpoena powers. It hasn't been necessary to utilize those subpoena powers. I can tell you that the Civilian Oversight Board and our Internal Affairs Department are probably about 96-97% of the time there or in agreement with respect to the
That's what we
allegations.
saw in the report. That was
And
good.
so what it says to me is that our Internal Affairs Department is doing its job, and that the Civilian Oversight Board is ensuring and validating that the Internal Affairs Department is doing its job. So we want to be as transparent as possible with respect to that division.
Okay. I didn't have any other comments, thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Alderman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro?
Yeah, the two legal investigators, excuse me, are they attorneys?
No, they're not attorneys.
But they're legal
In
investigators?
fact, one was an investigator for the prosecutor's office for a number of years. She came out of that office and over to the Civilian Oversight Office. So while they're not police officers, they are very experienced.
Okay, and then again, you'd asked for 88,000 to split between two guys, you're gonna get 84? So roughly they make about 40,000? Okay, and yet, were you, well, anyway, it's okay. They're legal investigators, I'm a little, but that was probably my only question.
No further questions?
No.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Howard?
Yes, I guess my question is here on 5645 travel. $10,000 is out, well, there was 9,000 used in 17, 6,000, almost 7,000 in 18, and the request is for 10,000 last year and 10,000 this year. Where are we going?
These are lots of conventions for best practices. Just making sure that we have the appropriate certifications
And so just a lot of educational types of.
Who goes
of,
to these?
And Nicole Barton has gone, which is our commissioner, and I believe an investigator or two may have gone as well.
It's a lot of traveling.
Well, they also keep up with their certification. I'm going to apologize in advance of not remembering what the acronym stands for, but the Organization of Professional Civilian Oversight Board is called
It's a
NACOLE.
national association.
NACOLE. And some of the travel is associated with that, as Judge Edwards indicated, with the conventions, and Nicole has been asked to speak several times, but the investigators also participate in that.
It just seems like an awful lot.
And you know, I kind of want to say the board members had to get some certification as well.
I mean, if it's just two people, $10,000, I can do a
No,
lot
I
of
think,
travel.
I think some of it is the board members as well.
And I know conventions charge you, but still, that's, sometimes $500.
Right.
I mean, and usually conventions, last 2-3 days?
Right.
Yeah, Alderwoman,
I
I
mean,
can
I
tell
just,
you.
I would like more detail on that, and who's,
Okay,
I mean,
we
if
can
the whole
certainly
board
provide
is
that, yes.
using it, I can see that.
We can certainly provide that.
And
We've
then
had.
$2,000 for education, where does that go, the education and training, $2,250?
Yeah, we will provide you with a
Okay, I'd
detailed
appreciate
explanation
that,
with
'cause
respect
I
to.
just don't want any embarrassment going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that
transparency.
in certain circumstances, where the events are in close proximity within 300 or 400 miles, they will actually drive themselves and not
Take
ask for
mileage out.
reimbursement.
Yeah, it just seems like, and how many members are on the COB, what, 5, 6?
No, it's like
10?
12.
I mean, if they all go, I can understand that, but if it's just for two, or 2 or 3 people, that's a lot of money
Right, we
in a
can get
year.
you very precise detail on who went and where they went and why they went.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One more, just send it to the whole committee.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect,
I
yes.
appreciate
No,
it.
yeah, at the end, I'll make sure that I'm making notes of what you're
Okay.
requesting.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see those travel details too, but I'll just say this: I was like more than glad and blessed that we were even able to deliver the Civilian Oversight Board. Terry Kennedy had spoken of like how many hurdles and how many years and years and years it took to even put something like that forth in this city that we desperately need, because we definitely have some problems and no one can sit here and negate that. So whatever training that they need so that they could serve in that capacity at its highest level, I would be in support of it, because we definitely need that. And I think I missed the update when they came before our Public Safety Committee, but I would like to actually see them in action and see how we are moving along as a city since its inception. So I definitely support it, and whatever training they need to get it.
Thank you.
If it's 2 of them or everybody, I think they need to get it.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Hubbard. And we move on to Alderwoman Murphy.
Most of them have been asked and answered. On the legal services in 5660, it says 30,000. Are those, it went from 2,000 to 30,000, from 17 to, are those lawyers that we contract out for opinions, or?
Yeah, there's actual language in the ordinance that talks about legal services, but we've hardly used it since the inception of the Civilian Oversight Board.
Okay.
I think that originally our budget was like 50,000, and so it's barely touched.
So it's 30,000, but you still need the 30,000.
Well, you just never know, right? It's sort of a
So they're on
anticipated,
retainers?
unanticipated.
These are
No,
lawyer retainers?
they are not on retainers.
Okay.
And so it's hourly. We've been lucky that we haven't had lots of.
Something happened.
Right, I noticed that so far, yeah. Right. No, thank you, that's all.
All right,
Thank you.
Mark. Alderman Mohammed.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Alderman Oldenburg.
Just a couple of questions. What's the workload, whether it's in hours, number of cases reviewed, either in a year, quarter, monthly? And how many cases does this board look into, and kind of what's the barometer of success? Is
Well-
the average taxpayer saying there's this $330,000 annual line item and entity that exists, which I believe has virtue, but the explanation of the success rate of this department, how do we explain that to the average taxpayer?
I think that the scope of work has increased by default. And that's when individuals see an officer on the street, for example, that's being disrespectful. Oftentimes, they will go straight to the Civilian Oversight Board, even though IED probably should have been the appropriate procedure.
Okay.
So all officer-involved shootings, all officer-involved assaults, all of those things are reviewed to the Civilian Oversight Board. So whatever is going to IED is probably on a parallel track to the Civilian Oversight Board.
Okay. But in terms of kind of the number of that review, do you have a sense of that off the top of your head?
Well, we provide that annually. I can make sure that you
Okay.
get that update.
That'd be great. Thanks, that's all I have.
Don't forget, thank you, Alderman. And Alderwoman Boyd.
I have spoken to Nicole on several occasions, and I applaud her because she is trying to educate the community more on what the Civilian Oversight Board does, and I think that was the challenge. People heard the words, but they weren't clear. So she had someone come to one of our meetings to kind of educate people in regards to their responsibilities. So that helped the residents. Because I think what happens is people are misled and thinking it's one way, but it's another way. And so they kind of cleared the air to help them to educate them on that. But in regards to the board members, I know that you said that they're trained also. So is it intense training that they get with the employees to know how to, work the process?
Oh, yes. We're looking for best practices. We are certified. We're trying to make sure that we're as compliant as we can be.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I have no questions of it, but as we stated, the travel info, please have dispersed, to all committee members,
You're making up.
Yep.
and that would be great. And if that is, we can move on to the next.
Thank you very much. We'll be moving on now to 625 City Emergency Management Agency. What we'll do is just kind of, just give an overview of exactly what happens in that department. I think what I ask you to be aware of or be advised of, that about 50% of the funds that you provide are matched through state. And so this is one of our unique departments. So.
Unique is a good word.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Gary Chrisman. I'm the Commissioner of Emergency Management for the city. As you can see, the budget's down a little bit from last year, and the reason behind that is I am fully staffed now. We have 4 individuals in my department, including myself. The difference in that is a lot of the salary from the past employees to the new employees. So that has brought my budget down. As the director had mentioned, this is 50% of the budget. We go through an emergency management program grant through the state of Missouri, which is a federal grant that matches 50% of allowed expenditures for the department. So the department, really quickly, we look at prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation from any and all hazards that can affect the city of St. Louis, including natural disasters, technological disasters, and also natural disasters. So we work with our citizens to ensure that they're prepared. We work with our local agencies here in the city of St. Louis, our regional partners, the state, the federal, the military, private industry, hospitals, healthcare, to ensure that we have a good plan in place in the event that something happens. How are we going to evacuate people? How are we going to shelter individuals? How are we going to seek medical care for them? And then how do we get them back into their normal lives following a disaster? And then also mitigating against the next disaster to ensure that we can lessen the impact as we did after '93.
So this is a very unique department because of the broadness of its subject matter. So everything from Ebola, which we would have to partner with, I guess it's BJC that we partner with, in terms of Ebola, having to do the Ebola training, having to go through all of those types of things, all the way to flooding. And so where's the water? Have we arrived at the flood wall? So everything from Ebola, floods, thunderstorms, and any other man-made or natural catastrophe. And so that's the responsibility of SEMA.
All right,
Thank you.
okay, we can open up the questions. Alderwoman Davis?
No questions.
All right. Alderman Carl?
So isn't a lot of that funded by the state?
Yes, 50%.
That's what I thought. Okay.
No further questions?
No, that's all.
Alderwoman Howard?
I have a question, I don't know if you can answer it, but it's just something that occurs to me that, we've been working on Port Authority. Would turning the city into a complete Port Authority have any bearing on your services and how they're delivered, or your budget?
I would,
Or do you know?
off the top of my head, I would have to say no. We would still be doing the same responsibility as we're doing now, if we're Port Authority or if we're not.
Okay, but I mean, as far as funding, you don't know either?
Our funding comes from a different source as far as the state, so I don't believe it would impact it.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Alderwoman Howard?
No questions.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Murphy?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Muhammad?
Same as Borough Standard to me, no questions.
Thank you very much. Alderman Oldenburg?
Quick question on contractual and other services, either outside or professional services. What types of contractors are those? I just noticed a decent jump from 18 to 19 and now the current year budget.
We have satellite phones, we have satellite downlink for internet. Those are inside of our Emergency Operations Center, which is located at police headquarters, but we also have a mobile unified command vehicle that is the same as what we have in our brick and mortar, but it has the capability of going to the scene and supporting. So it's satellite contractual, it's phones, it's internet, it's DirecTV, so we can have situational update on what's going on, and then copiers, printers, those type of things.
Got it. Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, Alderman. And we'll move to Alderwoman Boyd.
No question.
Thank you. Alderman Clark Hubbard?
No questions, thank you.
All right. I have no questions of you. I don't envy your job at all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairperson,
Yeah.
Neighborhood Stabilization. 622 Neighborhood Stabilization, Citizen Service Bureau. This is Dottie McDowell. I was a part of the conversation when the mayor was here. I want to assure you that Neighborhood Stabilization and Citizen Service Bureau is safe this year. We expect to have all of those folk in place, and there is no risk of any deletions.
Much easier than last year.
Much easier than last year.
No drama.
All right, if there is no further, we can go open up. Alderman Davis?
You answered, we done.
Okay. Alderman Vaccaro? Good deal. Alderwoman Howard?
How many people do you have manning the phones at 62-4800?
All seats are filled now, and so I believe we have a total of less than 7.
We have 7 CSRs answering the phones right now.
And then just for your information,
So-
I require that they be cross-trained. So if there's an issue with respect to Citizen Service Bureau, nobody's there, we pull somebody in, and you guys have probably experienced that with your stabilization
Yes,
person.
yes.
So we'll pull them in because the first priority is to try to make sure that we're manning the phones and we're doing it efficiently and timely.
So with all of that said and being fully staffed, there should be no stress on these people to be hurt or unduly disrespectful to the customers they're serving our
That's correct.
citizenry.
Right, no, that should, now, if something like that is happening, I would like to know immediately because there is no room or excuse for that.
Okay, I will let you know. Okay, thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one quick question. What's the response time as far as answering constituent complaints? Because the new wave among constituents now is to mention the alderperson on Twitter, and they'll tag you in it as well, CSB in it as well, and then they'll be like, okay, I still haven't heard from you. You know how it goes. It doesn't bother me much, but like, what's the turnaround time on
Well,
meeting
actually,
those
it's
concerns?
up to the individual operating department, so as soon as it leaves the Citizen Service Bureau, or as soon as that call ends and a service request number is provided, it's automatically dispatched to the operating department for investigation and resolution. And so those various departments set their turn time.
Okay, and so then when constituents reach out to you again, like what's the follow-up, or what's the time frame?
So the follow-up is that we contact the respective department and the individual that it was dispatched to and notify them that this is still open, it hasn't been resolved, we need an update, you know, specific answer as to either when it'll be resolved or the parts are coming in, or just something that's meaningful to the public other than open.
Okay. Thanks, no further questions.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. And we go to Alderwoman Murphy.
Yeah, I guess mine's on the same line. We're not telling people things are closed, are we?
No, we're,
When, you know, when they get dispatched to forestry, they say, oh, I called them back and they said it was closed and the tree's still standing there. That's when we get everyone's thunder and lightning.
absolutely. I understand, I feel your pain, and this is something we've worked extremely hard to change over the past year or so with all of the departments, and adding more meaningful statuses in between new and closed.
Okay.
So if it's dispatched,
Yeah,
field.
couldn't they just say that forestry was notified and give the date? And then at least I know that when I check that forestry was notified, it doesn't just say closed.
And so they shouldn't, going forward, and essence, I'm trying to remember exactly what month we started that, but we eliminated using the word closed until the
Because
work
that was
is
so-
actually
yes.
completed.
Okay, good, good. I think that'll help a lot, and then they know who, who to be mad at, I guess, is what I want to say. You know, if it's not done, because I always try to tell them, Citizen Service Bureau is a conduit, you know, it's a dispatcher more or less. But when it says closed, they think, well, that's not right, because that tree's still there, or whatever it is they complain about. Now, have you completed interviews for the new NISs? You know I'm speaking from a personal situation.
Yes.
I know you don't like this, but have interviews finished, so we can look forward to a full...
Personnel has done 2 days of interviews, and it's my understanding they have yet still some applications that they need to go through and conduct more interviews. After that process is done, then they'll send us an eligibility list from which we can hire 2 neighborhood improvement specialists.
And are you getting good, do you think good qualified applicants?
Honestly, I won't know
Oh,
until
you
they
don't
send
know
us
that
the,
yet.
the list of
I'm
the
just
certification.
Because I'm anxious.
Yeah.
And no more questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Mohammed, any questions of Patty?
I think you guys are underfunded. I think you guys do a fantastic job. I love my improvement specialist. Director, she should get a raise.
I appreciate that. I will note that too.
Yeah, I'm lost.
Any further?
No further questions.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Oldenburg.
Just one question. My colleagues may be realizing a theme here, but in fiscal year 18, vendor contracts and other outside services, there was quite a jump, 35% of an increase from 18 to 19 in those services. Remained pretty flat for this budget year, but can you talk a little bit about kind of the detail behind who you might use on a contract basis and what outside vendors or services you may?
Certainly. 2 of the main differences have been for communications in transferring our current structure as a Citizen Service Bureau into an official 311 center for information and referral pertaining to governmental things and civic priorities.
Yep.
So that was a $30,000 increase, and then this year, we moved the Regis account from ITSA into Neighborhood Stabilization, and what that account is for, it gives the neighborhood improvement specialists access to Highway Patrol information and Department of Revenue information for looking up VIN numbers to see if the plates that are actually on a vehicle match that vehicle, because a lot of times we find in our work that vehicles may be stolen, and we can report that to the police, as well as looking up pedigree information for property owners so that we can initiate the warrants for housing court.
Got it.
And we also assist the functional needs, the Human Services Division with locating individuals that are on the functional needs registry in times of inclement weather. And so we go out and help them canvass and knock on doors to ensure the vulnerable population's safety. And the last is just helping to locate property owners that letters have been returned on, and trying to track them down and see where they really are so that we can get them to be more responsible in caring for their city properties.
So, if I heard correct, I mean, a majority of that $125,000 is really for access to data, access to information. Those are vendors that are providing you Regis. Those are vendors providing your folks with kind of real-time information to do their job quickly and effectively.
Yes.
Right? That's great. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you very much, Alderman. Alderman Boyd.
CSB to me is really a dumping ground, because when I say a dumping ground, your people that answer the phone, they take the complaints, they send the complaints out, and they usually give residents about a time frame when things will be done. And then the residents come and attack them because it's not done. And they might have started in 2018 where they don't say close, but we have instances where I did test trials to just see, and those departments will say they're done, and they're not done. And so in defense of CSB, I don't know how we can fix that, because they're catching a lot of slack. And what I tell the residents is they just taking the calls. They can't tell Forrester you have to do A, B, C. They can't do that. So I just hope we come up with a better way with the departments to give you all the information properly and make sure things are closed as they say they closed. Because when you have an NIS that put in something today and an hour later they say it's closed, it's something not right with that situation. So in defense of them, they're trying to take care of those residents, but they can't because, they're getting wrong information, and so that's hurting. So CSB is the one this is like the dispatcher is the one that gets cussed out, chewed up, because they said, but it's not done. But CSB said, we just put it in there.
I think your points are well taken. It's something that we are very much aware of, that we hopefully have corrected, and if it's not corrected, and if you see it's happening again, I think, I'll invite you to talk to Dottie again, but it's something that has bubbled all the way up to me with respect to this issue. So I am very, very concerned about misleading the public, or misstatements to the public, or anything that is not accurate. And so I'm very concerned about that, and I appreciate the fact that it has come to your attention, and you're bringing it to our attention again. But we're cognizant. Thank you.
And that's why I do tests where they don't know I'm an older person. I'm just Joe Blow resident.
Well, I got a lot of people that test stuff.
Right.
Going to my
And then-
facilities.
Yeah, and then when it comes back, I'm like, no, you didn't correct this, so don't tell me this. So that's all I ask. So on the training, what does the NIS, what training are they getting?
So they get training in CityWorks, which is a system that all the service requests are entered into.
Okay.
As well as a lot of shadowing in other departments. So in terms of problem properties database for behavioral nuisances, they work closely with our city councilor's office and the
Right.
problem properties officers.
Okay.
And those are situational, and not all cases can be handled the same.
Okay.
In addition, you know, if a zoning issue comes up in a neighborhood, we're researching that information and checking to see what conditions apply for that particular business, and if they are out of compliance, working with zoning to address those issues and reporting back to the community and community building in general. So we reach out to various community partners such as Better Family Life, SLACO, the Federation of Block Units, based upon a neighborhood's desires and what their goals are.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Clark Hubbard?
No questions, thank you.
All right,
I have one more.
proceed.
Now, the NISs all have tablets, is that true?
No, they don't. They have laptop
Building
computers.
Okay. They
Years-
have access to all the information the building inspectors have?
Yes, they do. Well, we have a limited view of the building division's system, so we can't see all of the information, but we can see when there's been a violation and if the fees have doubled, when the inspector has been out, when they're scheduled to go back out again.
So now they have access to Regis. Now, my impression was, I've got a police officer assigned in my ward, not in my ward, but in the area in the first district, to go around and tag derelict cars. Now, you're telling me, I thought that the NISs were no longer allowed to do
Well,
comps.
let me clarify. I kind of let it go and would clarify later. There is no carte blanche access to Regis. You know, you got ORI, you go in Regis, if you're the wrong person in Regis, then we're gonna be looking to indict you. And so there are certain things that you can get and certain things that you can't get. And so you have to have a password. We get police involved, you gotta have an ORI from the State Highway Patrol. So I don't want you to.
So we're paying that almost $20,000 for a license that nobody's using?
You know what, we pay a whole lot of money.
I'm just asking, because I'm confused.
Well, they have limited access, very, very limited access.
So I guess the bottom line question is, are the NISs also responsible for tagging derelict cars and making sure they're removed from the neighborhoods, or is that
No.
not their purview?
No, the short answer is no.
Okay.
The bigger answer on a more micro level, on a smaller level, is that they can provide information at city stat, they can provide information to the captain. That's how we're processing those derelict cars at this time.
Okay, yeah, because they'd stop putting stickers on them, you know, so. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that closes out SEMA. I'm sorry, NSO, CSP.
Oh,
You know-
very quickly, I wanted both the judge and, I forgot
Dottie,
her married
Dottie.
name.
McDowell.
Dottie McDowell.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to share with you is that this young lady right here, what's your name?
Yes.
She is so good in the community.
You know, why are you making it so difficult for me?
Yes.
Everybody's gonna walk out here and think that they really did.
People don't get credit for the work that they do. They don't. And when she finished at my neighborhood meetings, I got people reporting things, doing it the right way, understanding how the systems work. I even learned something at one of the meetings that she was presenting at. So I'm like, I am appreciative, and however she learns what she's learning, share it with everybody
Well,
else.
I certainly appreciate the compliments of all of the commissioners. They don't get the credit, and they don't get the applause and celebration that they should get.
I'm
So
sure it's
thank
a
you.
reflection of their leader.
Well, I'm not sure about that. You know, good leaders figure out how to get people that are much smarter than they are.
There you go.
All right.
She's got it.
Thank you.
All right. What's next on the,
We're going to do corrections 632, 633. We're going to do them together, MSI and the Justice Center. We have Dale Glass, who is the who is the Commissioner of Corrections. Let me just start like I usually start. I know you guys have been waiting on corrections. Let me say that I'm very much aware of the arguments and the debates with respect to MSI. And so let's just see if we can get that on the table right now. I believe that at some point, we should have modern facilities. I agree with that. And it makes sense to me. But we cannot take big leaps and giant leaps to destroy something and we don't have the capacity to back it up. And so that just doesn't make sense to me. When I was a judge for the vast majority of my career on the bench across the street, we had in excess of 2,500 people locked up, pre-trial, between our two facilities. Today, right now, there are 368 detainees over at MSI in the workhouse. A very small percentage of that number will be misdemeanors. We have no DWIs, we have no traffic violators, and those misdemeanors that are locked up in our facility are generally gonna be filed under the umbrella of domestic. And so if we have an individual that has violated an adult abuse order or a restraining order, that person is going to generally be locked up in our facility. And so those are the misdemeanors that are in our facilities. 99% of the people that are in our facilities will fall under a serious felony category. And so the narrative that there are traffic violators and other low-level felonies in our facilities is just not true. And so the data and the information that we have certainly I think is more credible than somebody on the outside taking a guess about what's on the inside. And so I just want to clarify that. Today, we have a total of 1,077 people locked up between our two facilities. We have closed the second floor of MSI. We are utilizing the dormitory at MSI. Many of you have been at MSI. You know that there are two categories of buildings at MSI. You have a dormitory building, which is the old building, and then, of course, you have the pods, which are relatively new. The pods have air conditioning. They have all of the things that we would call modern in a jail. It's the dormitory, which is the offender. The dormitory is the offender because it was built old. It's a 1957 Chevy, and so it doesn't have air conditioning. We have to pump air conditioning into that particular building. But that building also is where all of the infrastructure comes from. And so people ask me, well, why don't you just blow up the dormitory? Which, and I'll be the first one to throw a firecracker. For those of you that are concerned about July 4th, I'll throw that firecracker. I said, I don't have a problem with that, except for inside of the dormitory, we have the gym, we have the medical unit, we have the laundry, we have the cafeteria, we have the plumbing, we have the electricity. So without the dormitory, we cannot feed the pods. And so I just want to make sure that that's clarified, because too often the conversation is lumped into MSI. I'll turn it over to Dale at this point. Is there anything you wish to add?
I was going to say, well, I'm done with my part, but I'll add a couple of things. I would also say, Judge, in the dormitory, he's correct, the second floor we don't use. We just keep it clean and maintain it. On the first floor, we use 4 dorms out of 11. So the vast majority of that section is not used. We used to have 70 people in one dorm. We have approximately 155 people in the whole building of the old dorm. So that's where we're at with that equation. And as he said, we're down to roughly 350, 368. It fluctuates somewhat. And I think we've come a long way from when I started, when there were 1,100 people just in MSI. And so if there is a move to do something with those 350, let's do it. Let's help them so they don't have to be in jail. So I support that. To the budget, there's really not much difference in my budget from the previous year. There are a small increase. Most of it, or a significant part of it, can be explained simply by increase in cost, like the cost for health care, cost for feeding the detainees. There was a couple of things that I'd point out under 5237, and it's the same for both locations, where I asked for a slight increase, and that has to do with the topic I heard earlier about computers. Actually, in 2012, MSI was actually using paper and doing log notes. So we had to get connectivity to that building, which we have done, and we started buying computers, and even the computers at CJC were old. So this is to not, to prevent us from being in that position again. So this is gonna update approximately a third of our computer system at both locations. And that's why that increase was requested. So that's the main thing. The one thing I would point out too, and I shared this with the director and the mayor, a lot of our conversations have been around maintenance at MSI, but CJC was built in approximately 2002. So we need to look at those systems. They are beyond the span of life. And so some of the budget requests and the things that we're doing are directly related to CJC. So.
All right. With that, we'll open up the questions. Alderman Davis?
I'm glad you mentioned the date that CJC was built, because one of the ongoing problems that we have as a city is we delay maintenance too long. And if we let that building get in total disrepair, then where will we be? So I'm glad to hear that you're looking at it. We probably should have started looking at it 5 years ago. Once you pass your 10-year mark, you're supposed to be looking at major things to make sure they're updated and maintained properly. So I'm glad to hear that. I also wanted to ask you, and let me clarify before I ask this question. I'm not unfamiliar with what you're doing, okay? You probably need more people to know what you're doing and understand what you're doing. You're not just housing people just because. You are also trying to give them a better outlook on their futures. You're bringing in different opportunities for them to have different mindsets, how they're going to move into the culture of the community to be better citizens. You have all kinds of programming there that's never been there before. You also have the opportunities for meditation types of things to calm folks so that you don't have as many incidents inside as you used to have. And that's important. That's really important. And so people need to learn some things before they start putting a lot of misinformation out there to the public. That's the first thing. The second thing is your credentials are incredible. And Jeffrey Carson, you all like, what are those two crime?
Mud and Jeff, see, that's kind of.
You call Mud and Jeff, okay. Okay. And the Carson and Hutch. The reason I can say that is because I went and did my own homework. So when the national convention came to St. Louis for correctional folks, I went to the convention. I talked to people all over the country. All they talk about is these folks. People call them from everywhere to get advice on how to do things in their facilities. They are very credible with their experience and their knowledge, not just on a local level, but a state and a federal level.
Right.
And so we're blessed to have that type of experience for the little bit of money we pay. So I just want people to understand a whole lot of things before I say what I wanted to say. Not one question. Okay. How can we find a way to even add additional things in the space that we don't use 24 hours?
So one of the projects that we're working on now, and I've actually incorporated in our RFP for a medical contract is a therapeutic unit. And one of the pods I'm converting, we're remodeling now, redoing the floors, painting it, new tables, and working with our mental health professionals to identify a group in our population that has specific needs. And tailor those programs to the actual population.
Yeah, and let me amplify a little bit. A lot of people end up locked up that should not be locked up.
I agree.
And they should be in a hospital, but they don't have insurance. And so we are left with, unfortunately, having to lock them up to provide services. And that's the wrong way to provide services. And so I think that we have to come up with a plan to have a triage center. We have to come up with a plan to have therapeutic units inside of our facilities. We have to have mental health beds. We have to have drug beds. We have to become more progressive with respect to jails, quite frankly. We are still operating under an old egalitarian jail, archaic type system. We're trying to get past that. We're trying to get past that in a facility that is old. But old doesn't necessarily mean that it's inhumane. It's just old. And so we understand that. We understand that 87% of the people are going to return back to the community. And so how do we help get them back into the community effectively? So I agree. I agree 100%.
I would also add that a significant number of our staff are now nationally certified, ACA standard.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
I think, I'm hoping that in 2020, the division will be nationally certified. In national corrections accreditation, we're fully accredited, but not only are we accredited, we got a perfect score at MSI. So there's a lot of those things that we're doing to try to, although it may not be part of the mission statement, we feel it is our responsibility to assist those that come to us that didn't get those services in the community. And then recently, the 25th of last month, we had a resource day where we invited in various services from the community to the facility and allowed the detainees to go to those, just like a conference, go to those tables and talk about what services are available for me and my family. And so that's what we do.
And we have a prescription drug program. I mean, if we've been giving you psychotropic medication because you need it inside the facility, we'll give you dosages when you leave, when we give them 10 days worth of
We're up to 14 days.
14 days of meds.
30.
You know, that we don't just turn people out and say, you know, you're out of here and we don't care about you. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to be as compassionate as we can possibly be. And so that debunks all that other stuff. But we don't celebrate that. We don't try to defend that. We do what we believe to be the right thing to do.
And not only do they get the medications, but we hand them off to specialists to continue those services. So yeah, that's what we do, and that's what I ask about in terms of budget to enable us to accomplish those things.
You put a lot of humanity into our jail systems that we didn't have before, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Alderman Vaccaro.
Actually, I would have a whole bunch of questions, but what I will say is, John Muhammad, in the Public Safety Committee, we are gonna be over, and I would hope you extend every bit of hospitality to that group, because you say a lot of stuff, we wanna see a lot of stuff. And I have a different opinion, and we go back to the lady that died, that you said one reason, I say it's another, but people that go in there, and these are not budget related, so we can bring this up in public safety.
Yes, that was
You know,
another committee.
it's another committee, but since we're allowing comments, I thought I'd jump in there. You know.
Yeah. May I just briefly respond by saying we welcome your visits. We don't hide anything.
Go there all the time.
bad, good, or indifferent. We don't hide anything. I'm totally transparent. So whenever you want to visit me, visit the jails, you just let me know, and we won't even call Dale. We'll just go. And so that takes away you guys thinking that we painted or we mocked.
No, but
Right?
the way we would work it is,
It's not a problem for me.
it'll just be a simple, John, giving them maybe as long as an hour notice.
All right.
Just come over.
Actually, if I may, Alderman Mohammed and I spoke last night.
So,
Very good.
anything else?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Alderwoman Howard.
I thank you for your service, and I thank you for, you work with a very difficult population and under difficult circumstances, and I appreciate what you do. And I hope that we can provide some services so we can eliminate the recidivism that we find, throughout the community, so. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to commend both of you all on your efforts. Mr. Glass, you probably don't remember me, but I remember you. I was a CO1 at MECC
Yes.
years ago, so I can remember like some of your strides that you've made over the years. And even prior to that, my mother, she worked in corrections like 30-something years. So I was a little kid roaming those halls at MSI. Back when they used to let inmates roller skate, imagine that. But it's a hard job to do. Several of my constituents were blown away when as CO1s or COs period, they weren't included in the Prop P stuff. And I'll just say that you get what you pay for. And even young kids that are in college who aspire to go into criminology or whatever, the first thing they'll decide is, okay, I'm gonna go to St. Charles County or St. Louis County or the state of Missouri, because although I live in the city, they're not paying me enough money to start. And so I think that's something that we need to revisit, because when you pay people what they're worth, and they definitely do a hard job that many of us wouldn't even do anymore. When you pay them what they worth, then that cuts down some of that corruption, and we don't have all these crazy situations hitting the news. You don't have people escaping as much. So I think that's something that we need to look at. And I was glad to hear like some of the strides we're making at MSI, and I think that needs to be put out there in the public, because you have this faction of individuals who paint that place as almost like a torture chamber, and they aren't even aware of what's being done to try to get us in a place where we could adequately address some of those issues. So I think we definitely need to do a better job of doing that, but overall, I commend you on your efforts. I've seen the strides that our Department of Corrections has made.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Murphy.
Yeah, just one quick question. I think you are doing a wonderful job. I'm glad you explained some of that a little better, because we hear, close the workhouse, like we can just open the door and let everything go, and it's not that simple, and I appreciate you explaining that better for myself and my constituents also. One question, I was looking at overtime here. Is that because we don't have a full contingency in the corrections MSI under overtime? It seems rather high. It's down. I will remark that it's down from. But is that overtime so high because we don't have enough correction officers, or we can't keep them, or?
The most of that overtime budget is actually for holidays.
Okay.
So holidays is paid out of overtime budget.
I get
So
you.
of course, we're open 24/7.
Exactly.
And so the staff.
Everybody's go home for holidays?
No, we don't get to do that.
I understand.
So the staff, that represents mainly holiday pay.
Okay.
Our vacancy is probably right around 40 for the division, for the staff.
Do you have a hard time keeping employees, or maintaining them, or?
Yes,
We do? Okay.
it's hard to explain to people what this job is until they walk in the door and you close it.
And you hear that?
Yes. So we do have turnover, but we've been successful in hiring and training.
Would the corrections division benefit from having employees come from outside the city? Is that a problem, that they have to be city residences or anything? Does that have anything to do with you?
No, I certainly think that the corrections would in fact benefit. I mean, our numbers are down.
Right.
And we get certain turnover. the ethical requirement to work in the jail is way up. Any misstatement or anything that you say might be interpreted as having the wrong conversation with an inmate, which will now get you charged with a Class C or B felony. And so we are very careful, very strict. You know, these grievances come up, you know, we deal with it. And so, you know, so we do get that turnover. But I think that all of our departments benefit, especially police and corrections would benefit with the ability to look into other areas in our region.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I would say, you know, just from the prospect of having a larger pool to select from. The other thing I would indicate, and it goes along with the comment about budget, is that our staff live in the same areas as the people they have to supervise. And that can be difficult.
I understand that. Same thing with police officers living in the neighborhood sometimes sounds wonderful, but it's not so much when the guy that delivers your pizza, your husband locked up the night before.
And they call your family or
Exactly.
live next door to your family.
So things sound good on paper
Yeah.
and not so much in real life sometimes. I know I lived it. Thank you.
Alderman Spencer, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I echo gratitude for the work that you all do, especially given all the number of victims that we have in the city. I think it's important to remember that every person that we have incarcerated, there's somebody on the outside that is grateful that
They're on the outside.
that somebody, we have incarceration here. You mentioned that the buildings are very old. And last year, we had temporary air conditioning installed. Is that something that we're looking to make a permanent, ongoing upgrade to the facility this year?
You know what, I have decided that we would keep our temporary in place. Our temporary in place is temporary permanent. We don't move it. But we haven't done a capital, let's put in the big unit and force air into the building. I mean, that would run us into millions and millions of dollars. I mean, the building is just not constructed to do that. And so what we're looking at, right now, the best solution is that temporary air that's being pumped only into the dormitory, which is quite frankly, it's pretty good because we're not cooling the second floor anymore. The detainees oftentimes complain that it's too cold. But so to answer your question, right now the answer is no.
And but on the flip side, the solution that we had in place last year, the additional air conditioning units are going to be put in place again this year?
They are in place. We did not move them.
Move them out. So that was an addition last year. Am I understanding that correctly? And that will stay in place?
Yes, the units are there and they stay there. In fact, I got units that would also supply heat if needed as a backup to our current system. The other thing is that there's now only 150 people that live in the dormitory area. So I think temporary is appropriate at this point.
Yeah. Once we turn them on, we start to get charged. So
Sure.
even though they stay there, as soon as we start using them, then the cost.
Okay. Along the same question, it is it, Mike, with 150 people with that reduction, is it feasible for the city to ever close that facility entirely?
Well, my conversation.
And I guess the question.
I had this conversation early on.
I know that you mentioned earlier that the vast majority of people in there are under state charges. And I think it's just a source of confusion for the general public, and I'm asking more or less for some level of clarification because I think that remains a level.
I would need a facility at about 500 beds. I would need a facility at about 500 beds. I would be interested in mental health beds. I would be interested in drug beds. I would be interested in therapeutic beds. But I still need a facility because when you start to count, one person doesn't equal one bed. And so
So when you start to put that equation in place, and I'm hoping that what we have is sustainable, but I know it's not. I know that we have 5 programs that are driving the population at MSI down. And so we have programs like the Bail Project. And contrary to popular belief, I like the Bail Project. I like bail reform. But we have to question the sustainability of that. I like the fact that I can give the judges a dashboard every morning and tell them that you have X amount of technical violators in MSI that came in overnight, and I'd like for you to move them out really, really fast. And they listen and they do it. I like the fact that we have other programs that we can move people out on mental health, or we can move people out on drugs. Those are programs that are causing the reduction at MSI. But what we haven't talked about is that crime is not reducing on an equal or at the same rate. And so if those programs go away, and those programs are not sustainable, if those programs go away, now I'm in a position where you're going to be asking me, Judge, why do we have all of these 8 felons walking the street that should not be on the street because they're a risk to themselves or they're a risk to others? So we have to be prudent. That's when I talked about taking a giant step. We have to make sure that we have exercised a great deal of thought with respect to how we're going to manage this. So when I say it's an old facility, yes, it's an old facility. Would I like a brand new facility without bars? Absolutely. I would like a brand new facility without bars.
I'd like a city without crime.
I would like a city without crime. Absolutely.
But along those, and it's when we have those programs in place, it ends up saving us money because, of course, it costs the city money, significant amount of money every day that we incarcerate somebody. Along those lines, I see that we're spending tens of millions of dollars incarcerating people out of our own city budget. It's limited. What efforts are we undergoing to, as you mentioned earlier, the vast majority of folks are in there under state charges, and the state is not reimbursing the city for holding those folks that we have under state charges. In fact, that's the biggest chunk of the money that we spend incarcerating people. What efforts are underway to compel the state to fully reimburse the city of St. Louis for incarcerating people under state charges?
Well, that's a very, very difficult lift. For those of you that don't know how we are reimbursed about $22 a day.
And it costs.
But we are only reimbursed if the detainee is convicted of a crime and transported to the Missouri Department of Corrections. There is a bill that we've been pushing back on where the state, you want me to go in and try to get the $22. The state is now trying to offer us just $14 for 20 days, and they won't pay us any more even if we keep them for 3 years or we keep them for 4 years. So I'm running into situations where people are pleading guilty 2 or 3 years after they have been locked up, and they get put on probation or they get a suspended execution of sentence. They're never delivered to the Missouri Department of Corrections. I get $0.
I don't want the 22, and I don't want the 14. I want the $86 a day that it costs us to house those folks.
That's just only
the
direct
fully cost.
operating expense.
Sure. So how can we collectively work together to support adequate funding so that we can improve our facilities?
Yeah,
so
we have
that
associations all over the state that's concerned, that's raising these issues, that are going to the legislative bodies. We have just not been able to get this issue before the Missouri legislature.
Well, please empower us to help in every way that we can
Absolutely.
to stand behind those efforts, please.
Absolutely.
That's all I
Will
have,
do.
Mr. Chairman.
Imagine
Thank you.
problems in Jeff
Yep.
City, how
Yep.
that,
We have a
how unusual.
But we'll stand with you, and
I'm
you know, it
shocked.
does make a difference, and we can communicate to our state legislature, and perhaps the whole city of St. Louis can go to Jeff City and advocate on the best interests of our city budget and our city citizens.
Welcome.
and those sorts of
I
things.
absolutely welcome your support on that. Thank you.
Alderman Mohammed, any questions?
Thank you,
Now
Mr.
the-
Chairman.
All right.
The one thing that I noticed is, you need more money for your correctional officers. You requested more, but it was not given by the Board of E&A. You requested just a little over $1 million, and they gave you pennies, honestly. I'm gonna work with you, Judge, to find that money to pay our correctional officers what they deserve. They have a heavy workload, and they deserve their fair
I
share.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'm no stranger to corrections, you do a good job with both centers, as an inmate and as an officer,
You were not an inmate.
for 42 hours.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the population difference between MSI and the Justice Center?
At this point, about 700. We have 368 versus,
There are 900, well,
we have 1077.
the total today is 1077 for the division. At CJC, there are 790. At MSI, there's 368.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I said 790, I meant to say 709.
At CJC.
CJC.
709 and 368 in MSI.
That's correct.
Great.
Oh.
You mentioned putting out an RFP. I imagine that sort of falls under your contractual services and other outside services for therapeutic unit added. Is that reflected? I'm on 5637-208 inmate medical services. Is that reflected in the $250,000 increase that I guess was budgeted in fiscal year 19 and what you requested and got budgeted for this fiscal year?
So we just sent out the RFP. So we have to try to estimate what the medical costs will be going forward.
Right.
But what we based it on was the increase in medical
I see.
in general.
Yep.
But I also anticipate that there may be some increase because we are developing that therapeutic unit. Because it would take specialized staff like more psychologists or psychiatrists.
Okay, so that particular contract with medical services could increase as a result of the response from that RFP?
Well, so I reflected here, I don't expect or anticipate it would increase above that because I'm also taking into account the reduction in population.
I see. Okay. And I don't want to skip ahead because I know the Justice Center is next. But with your contracts and your outside sort of vendors, do you see a potential for an increase or a swell of any metric that might indicate that what's not reflected here in this budget, where you would see maybe an uptick, where there would have to be a supplemental appropriation or anything like that?
So what's not reflected here is not predictable.
Okay.
Because
Fair enough.
I don't control who gets incarcerated
Yep.
and what happens in terms of policies or laws.
Yep.
So,
Okay. And then and again, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can wait again for the Justice
No,
Center.
we're doing
Oh, all right, perfect. I didn't know.
We're combining, we're combining.
Even better.
One-stop shop.
I noticed, so that's why I asked the population question, because I look at the line items in both for medical services and meal services, which are your largest kind of outside vendor contracts. They look roughly the same. So for a population of 368, why is it roughly the same for the same population of 709, those contracts?
and you're talking about the medical?
Both medical and meal services. I got about 3.9 million in medical for the MSI and 4.8. So, okay, that's roughly about almost $1 million differences. But I guess with meal services, it feels like it's about the same to feed a difference of about 400 in population.
So in both of those categories, what I do, because as I indicated, I don't control who comes to jail and who doesn't.
I see.
So instead of just looking at last year, I do a 5-year average.
Got
And
it.
so going forward, you'll see a difference where it shifts to more cost at CJC versus MSI. The population difference used to be just the opposite, where we had more people at MSI and fewer at CJC.
Got it.
So now that population has shifted, with a 5-year average, in a couple of years, you'll see that difference shift also.
That's helpful. That's very helpful.
So the price of honey buns just didn't go up.
Right. I just thought we were feeding people at MSI more, but that's, no, that's helpful. And I think it's important, you know, I think there can be money found in some of these outside services or other contracts. So your logic behind that is reasoned, and I appreciate you bringing that to me. Is it okay to, can I see that scheduling or maybe that methodology?
The 5-year
Yeah,
projection?
yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
We have that.
All right.
No further questions. Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd.
Were you all in my dining room this morning? Cause everything you saying, that's what my husband and I discussed. And so that's, I was like, well, were they in my dining room with breakfast? But I wanna applaud you all because I have walked through there several times. And, the kitchen, you know how I am about the kitchen class. The kitchen is phenomenal. You need to go see their kitchen. They have a bakery port that you could die for. So I'm just letting you know.
MSI?
Yes, MSI. I'm telling you that it is just phenomenal over there. And so I think what they're doing, I applaud you guys because you're thinking outside the box. And so it's not the old thinking, lock people up, keep them in a cell and. Right, you all are looking at making them marketable and productive citizens, and so that's a plus. I just have a problem with the salaries because of the work that you're doing, and I know you're challenged with correction officers. And so the ratio is kind of shaky because of you not having the right amount of correction officers that you need to help you out do your job. So anything that I can do, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you. No further questions. I did learn a lot and I look forward to it.
Learned a lot.
All right, I see. So if you're going to be getting the information, please disperse it to all about the 5-year plan you're talking about with Alderman Roll.
The 5-year average.
Yes, yes, please disperse it all to committee members. And then, I guess the big thing we're looking at is opening up residency requirements.
Well, you know, I've said it at least 3 times.
Yes, sir.
At least.
All right,
That's why I asked you.
all right.
That's why.
Who would like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to do buildings next, Mr. Oswald. Thank you.
We're going to try and muscle through this as I noticed building division as we did yesterday with streets and far as let's keep all our germane to the budget and not to problem properties or things in your ward specifically today. In the interest of time, we still have the police and fire department, so.
All right, thank you very much. Most of you know Frank Oswald. I've asked him to just take a couple of minutes, be precise and succinct, and then we'll open it up for questions.
All right. Morning, well, good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
Our building budget this year is basically the same as last year. There's not hardly any change whatsoever. Any changes you see are basically just due to the increase in cost. There's no new programs, et cetera, et cetera. What I did pass out to you guys is, you know, in the interest of showing in a tangible manner what we do on an annual basis, or this is a little more. I thought it was kind of good for everybody to see this. What I've got is basically all of the inspection activities your inspectors do in your ward. Each ward right now gets 2 inspectors. I have 56 inspectors to go across $1.6 billion worth of construction this last year. So what you're seeing in that first line as far as inspections, and you can see the time period, it was actually from January through May. What I did is that includes all your CSP requests as far as complaints. That includes any demolitions, obviously it's more weighted in certain wards than others. All your complaints, door-to-door inspections. The big one is your housing conservation. We hit about 24,800 people last year as far as housing conservation inspections. It's a big deal, it's a big thing. Our occupancy permits for commercial occupancies, and then our vacant building program, as far as hitting all of those things. The vacant building program, I think, is making a big difference. We're actually seeing money starting to come in now for the from all the fees we're assessing, and, it makes a big difference. What you're seeing in that next line where it says NHR permits, those are all the permits that are issued in your ward that are under $4 million. Those are permits your building inspectors actually oversee. Now, I have another crew, which is my high-rise crew with 6 people in it, who oversee anything over $4 million, all the really big projects. So that is excluded. So you can see in that time period, we actually did close to 87,000 inspections in the city. I think the big thing that's really happening that's important to, that you should notice from that is that all the activity is not in South St. Louis. By far, you're seeing a lot of activity in North St. Louis. And you're seeing a lot of inspection stuff down there. And a lot of that is because of the demolitions and because of the money we're doing. Why are we doing so much? Because we finally have money. You guys gave us a great appropriation last year. I think I got received $3.6 million. I'm happy to say right now we have under permit 566 buildings. We will end up with about 800 buildings demolished under that money, and that was our goal, 800 buildings. Next year, you've got me at $4.5 million in demo budget, which is great. We'll continue spending, we'll get this down. We'll probably be able to start dealing with some of the larger commercial problematic buildings in some of the wards, some of the stuff you see from I-70 on the way in from the airport, that stuff, so.
Yeah, that's some of the things that we're certainly concerned about, is what our city looks like coming downtown off of 70. But I think what this document represents is the equitable delivery of services. And so, from the building department. And so I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to see exactly what's going on in our city. And so we're just trying to eradicate any arguments of the inequity in terms of services that are delivered in the building department. Questions, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, we go with questions. Alderman Carl, questions of Mr. Oswald?
No,
Marlene is gone for a while. She had another meeting.
I just like your numbering system, starting with 17.6. I would've went one through, I get why you did it.
I was just trying to show
kidding.
where it was, and I have it the other way if you'd
We're
like
at
a
the
copy.
bottom, no, we're at the bottom of the list. No, I was just kidding.
And I wanted to show, you are at the bottom of the list. I mean, the reality is, I may in the future have to, I've got wards on the south side, quite frankly, that with 2 people do less than what some of the other people, I may have to cut some of it.
Uh-oh. We don't want to discuss that.
Yeah, all right.
I was just kidding because of the
No,
numbering.
it's a reality.
All right, Alderman Howard.
I was wondering, we probably do you have enough building inspectors, I guess is my question. And I would really like to see door-to-door inspections reinstated. And do you have a figure for that?
Yeah, we spoke, and to run a door-to-door crew like we used to have, where we would do about a third of the city with 6 inspectors and a supervisor, you're looking at about $500,000.
So how much do you realize from the demolitions and permits and income you bring into the city?
This past year, my department brought in $16.7 million worth of revenue. I think we get under $9 million in the 1010 account, and the rest of it is all through special funds and grants, et cetera, that type of stuff. So, yeah.
So you bring in 16 million and you're sharp, you don't realize about 7 million of that to use in your operating budget.
That's correct.
I guess I would love to see us return to the door-to-door and the cyclical movement through each ward rather than being complaint-driven, because you know, we have our 622-4800 CSB, but I don't feel that it's our citizenry's responsibility to identify problems with properties and turn that in. I think that if we're charging people, we just, you know, raise taxes, and I've got to worry about calling in about the guy next door whose gutter's falling off.
So Alderwoman, let me share with you, you're probably familiar with our city staff.
Right.
And so the officers get to have input, all of our commissioners and some of the directors are present on city staff, and they're able to identify some of the issues. They can't identify all of them, but.
The police
Yeah, the
officers?
police officers are now identifying issues. They're sharing with us what building should be boarded up, what house is falling down. So they're sharing the information as they patrol in the area. They're noticing that information. They use that data to inform the city works folk, whether it's picking up a derelict car, whether it's boarding up a building, whether it's cutting down shrubbery. So we have those meetings that we do generally once a month or so after our comp stat, just so that everybody is sharing information. It's not door to door, but it's in addition to making a call in to the Citizen Bureau.
But that troubles me because we don't have enough officers on the street. I mean, we're down officers, we can't hire officers, and we're having them doing building inspections?
No, not building inspections.
The same thing the
Problem
neighbors are
issues.
doing. Yeah, problem issues. But
If
why
I
don't-
have a kid running in and out of a vacant building, and if we believe that guns are being stored in the building, we get that building boarded up. Or so things that are dangerous, public safety type of issues, they have an opportunity to report that to our agencies and get those fixed.
Well, I mean, I understand, those are emergency situations. I'm talking about the day-to-day maintenance of the building that before.
We don't do that with the buildings.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I would like to see the circulation of the building inspectors doing the door-to-door on a regular basis and circulating.
Door-to-door is a good idea, you know, I mean.
Because our properties are, you know, by the time somebody notices what's going on, it's police there.
police.
I mean, I have
Well-
some situations in my ward that it's like if they did door-to-door, it wouldn't have gotten to the situation it is now.
I understand your point.
It's like your
So-
health. Prevention is the
Right,
best thing.
right.
If we
It's
can
like
keep
going
people
across
painting their
street,
gutters and
getting
maintaining.
your checks.
That's when the gas company used to have inspectors and meter readers, you know, that was a built-in,
Yeah.
door to door. Now they're putting all the meters outside, they've got the drive-bys, and yeah, you miss
Yeah.
all that.
I mean, I think that's something that as a committee we need to take under
Well, that's
advisement and see if we can.
If he says $500,000, see if we can find $500,000 somewhere.
We'll see. I mean, he's bringing in more than $500,000. If we could allocate that, I don't know. We'll
We'll
have to
find
see.
out. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Hubbard.
No question.
All right, thank you. Alderman Murphy.
No, that was my concern, the door-to-door, we had spoke about it, you know, and to try to, because I think like prevention is worth a pound of cure. If we get some of these people notified and made aware of the problem before,
It's
you know.
I'll be honest with you, you know, our housing conservation, which hits all these areas that have a lot of turnover, you know, does some of that. But particularly in the south side wards where you've got a lot of stable homeowners who've been there forever, they'll put it off, you know.
They sure
As
do.
far as the painting and the
Yeah.
tuck pointing and the roof and all the gutters and all that kind of stuff, so, yeah. You know, where
The
we're,
children inherit the property.
I know.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
All right, thank you. Alderman Oldenburg. Oh, sorry, Alderman Muhammad is snuck back in the room. Oh, I'm sorry. I had 8 next year, not me, so. Alderman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think that the building division is perhaps one of the most important pieces of providing public safety and services to our citizens. We have derelict vacant buildings falling down all over my ward and all over many parts of the city, and they are not only a public safety hazard, but they really make investment next to impossible on many blocks under which where they're under siege by vacancy. To the point of the door-to-door, I 100% agree with the need to do this, to have proactive folks that can go out there and identify issues. This is a way of not only providing a service to our citizens and creating safer neighborhoods, but generating revenue. My question with regards to the door-to-door crew, when was the last time we had something like that in place as a city?
Probably 2012, 2013.
Yeah, I'd say about 7, 8 years ago when after the '09 thing and we switched all the funding and,
Okay.
yeah, it's been,
When we have a proactive base of inspectors going out, they are issuing fees and fines to property owners who are otherwise not compelled to get their buildings in compliance. And they have to not only get their buildings in compliance, but they have to pay a fee to the city for the blight that they've caused in the meantime. What kind of revenue was that door-to-door crew generating? Because that $500,000 isn't just an out expenditure for which we don't get anything in return. What is that return on investment?
yeah, we don't really know because remember, we passed the administrative fee ordinance
Okay.
after where we previously just sent people to court.
Sure.
And again, the objective here is to get people to comply. So we give them usually 90 days, if not 6 months, depending upon what the needs of the community is. We're pretty, open on that kind of thing as far as giving people time. And then after that is when we can start hitting them with fees. I would think you'd always gonna be getting 50 grand back or so, something like that.
How much?
Maybe 50 grand.
So out of the expenditure of $500,000, we would get 10% return?
That would be a guesstimate.
So it's not a huge return on the investment?
No, most people comply. We get about 78% of our people who comply.
Okay. Is there a way to do a door-to-door crew on a smaller basis if we found a smaller amount of money to kind of pickpocket it to kind of get something like this going?
Yeah, as long as you guys don't fight over who gets what.
Okay. Along the same, what you were discussing earlier with the alderman from the 23rd, I know from talking to my inspectors in the 20th ward, not only do we have a significant number of inspections, but we have a significant number of violations, a significant number of vacant buildings on the vacant building list for which they have extra workload associated with it. It would be interesting to see this broken out by some of those other metrics added to it.
It's all there. I have those all broken out here. I just didn't bother to give you guys voluminous pages of stuff. But yes, that's actually what they do. It includes all of that
Okay.
work. Because everything they do is on a tablet. It is
Sure.
all,
Maybe we could have it dispersed after the meeting tonight.
well, yeah, I was gonna start doing a report for each of you individually on your wards.
And I would like to advocate for, just looking at the sheer volume difference between some of these higher, my ward, for example, having 3,500 inspections versus a ward with 1,500 inspections. My building inspectors are overworked and overwhelmed in some cases and can't address specific needs. And so
Trust me, I know.
the distribution of resources ought to be more need-based so that we can start to address some of the major violation issues in high-need areas.
Back before 2009, I had 4 building inspectors in certain wards.
Yeah, we have a lot of criminal activity, but the neighborhood really looks like.
My department shrunk by 30% over the past
Yeah.
year.
So even though your budget hasn't increased or decreased this year, it's seen significant decreases over the years. I know we've had cuts last year. Are you operating at an ideal level for our city our size?
Within the budget constraints,
Without
of course I would
constraints, yeah.
Of course, I would like to have a door-to-door crew. I think that's important. I come from a neighborhood preservation background, so I absolutely think that's real important. Yeah, I think we need a few more.
That's all I have to
Right.
share. Thank you.
Alderman Mohammed, any questions?
Great job, Commissioner, no questions.
All right, Alderman Oldenburg.
Just a couple, maybe around outside contracts. It looks like legal services, there's a line item for that. Occasionally, you require outside counsel.
Just in the event of like Board of Adjustment hearings, our Board of Building Appeals hearings, that kind of stuff, but rarely do we ever use any of that.
So that sort of trend has been where, in most cases, consistently you've seen.
Once in a while, we get sued for a demolition or something like that. So.
Right, makes sense. So bringing me I am in Fund 1116 now, Code Enforcement, lead remediation. Looks like the largest kind of contract or vendor there is around line item under major projects. What would that consist of?
Our lead fund is established by a ordinance.
Yep.
You know, and that fee generates money to be used for lead remediation in people's homes. We also use it for some of our technical stuff as far as updating our computer systems associated with, you know, the state and the, you know, getting notified of children with lead poisoning. We pay our contractors out of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Last question around same topic. The building demolition board up. It looks like in demolition and unsafe buildings, so there was a request for this budget year of 2.9 million, and we're actually budgeting almost close to $1 million over that.
Yeah,
Can-
I'm gonna get 4.3, I think it is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We can use all the demolition funds.
Yeah.
You know, quite frankly.
I mean, so that's where, I mean, in terms of the vendors of the outside contracts, is that really where you see in a given year,
The bulk of my
the potential where they grow, or where it could grow? But should trend down the more we get buildings
Correct.
demolished or
Correct.
solidified, right?
Correct. And I think, like you said, I think we're heading in the right direction with, you know, doing this, these fees on these vacant building owners too. It is causing a lot of people to come down to my office, unhappy people, but.
Good for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. No further questions.
Alderman Boyd, not present. Alderman Clark Hubbard?
Thank you for all you do. Y'all know I've worried out of y'all already because behind CSB, I've been up in your office the most, but your office has some of my favorite people in it now. So, thank you, no question.
All right, then we just need to find some money for your door-to-door cruise.
Thank you. Next up will be the police department,
All right.
Thanks, Mr.
650.
No, I thought there was fire.
No, I'm bringing in police, I gotta get them out of here.
No, I was just trying to knock this out.
Hey, listen, I really appreciated, I got Bloomberg at 2, so we'll see if I make it. Thank you very much. All of you know Chief Hayden. One of the issues that continue to be an issue that keeps me up at night is the number or the lack thereof of police officers. Yesterday, we were 135 officers down. I don't know whether anybody retired today. I think I saw where maybe one would be retiring today. So that number fluctuates between 120 and 140. And certainly, this is the one area where I believe that the residency restraint has totally constrained how we do business. We have a terrific cadet program that we put in people in the pipeline. We have about 90 folk in the academy. We just hired through the Police Foundation a recruiter. We just brought in a Fuse fellow to try to help us understand recruiting under these constraints. So we're doing everything that we can possibly do from a consultant, expert perspective to try to get our numbers up. So notwithstanding that, we don't use it as an excuse. I expect these officers to go out every day and do their level best to try to keep our city safe. I believe that our city is safer today than it was in 18, than it was in 17, than it was in 16. We're 12 homicides down today versus this time last year. So the narrative does not comport with reality. And so we continue to be in the most dangerous city debate because of the UCR number. We agreed to do that, and that was voluntary. We agreed to provide data. And so that data that we started to provide in 1995 has been a detriment to how we're perceived in the city of St. Louis today. The city of St. Louis is not dangerous with respect to that narrative. We do know that we have some problems, like all cities. We are not unique with respect to that. But my biggest problem has been trying to change the narrative with respect to the crime in the city of St. Louis. I know that 50% of the crime in the city of St. Louis has a drug nexus. I know that 15-20% involve domestic. I know that another 15-20% will involve people that know each other, that disrespect each other. So if you don't fall into one of those three categories, then you're going to be relatively safe in the city of St. Louis. Our crime is not random in the city of St. Louis. We don't have, and I thank God that we don't have people going into schools and just randomly hurting people. We don't have that issue. Now let me address this ceasefire issue for you, because I know that one of you really want to talk to me about ceasefire, so let me talk to you about ceasefire. Ceasefire was started in 1995 in Boston. It was started in Boston because in 1995, Boston had 44 juvenile homicides involving gangs. We don't have structured gangs in the city of St. Louis. We have loosely affiliated groups that mimic each other. If we had 44 juvenile murders in the city of St. Louis, we would have some really serious problems. I believe we had one homicide by a juvenile last year. Ceasefire is developed with 3 or 4 serious components. One of the components is to prosecute guns. Well, the state legislature took that tool away from us on January the 1st, 2017, when it enacted the permitless gun carry. Our officers don't have that tool anymore. They can't go and stop people just because they're walking down the street with a gun. They don't have sufficient probable cause under the permitless gun carry. So that tool has been taken away. So that element of ceasefire cannot be applicable in the city of St. Louis. Then there is federal prosecution. Well, I'll tell you that I sent 1,400 cases to the federal court last year for prosecution. Felons in possession. They are in the federal system. Then the other component is jobs. Well, we're providing jobs. We're providing jobs through SLATE. We're providing summer jobs. We're trying to address that area. And then the other component of ceasefire was deportation. Well, we don't have a whole lot of immigrants that are engaged in this type of criminal activity. So are we considering ceasefire? Well, I use every single thing that we can find to help reduce crime in the city of St. Louis. Boston doesn't even use ceasefire anymore. In fact, only 6 cities in the entire United States of America utilizes ceasefire. And so when we start talking about these types of programs, we need to be more informed in terms of how we share it. There are other programs that I'm willing to consider. I'm willing to consider anything, any program, any other plan that will allow us to reduce and help us to stem the crime in the city of St. Louis. So I just wanted to address those because those have been the things that have been in the news as recent as this week. So I just want to be radically honest with you with respect to where we are. I'm willing to use whatever we can come up with, but we have to make sure that it is adaptable to our city. And I'll ask Chief, is there anything you wish to add?
No, Judge, I would say that you're certainly, when it comes to ceasefire, your description is accurate. I think a lot of times people get kind of hung up on certain titles. So a lot of the major cities use a lot of the same components. When we talk about federal prosecution, that's pretty consistent with all of the major cities. when you talk about focusing on areas, I've created a rectangle, but I mean, but all of them focus on particular areas with enforcement. The best of them, I mentioned already, have federal prosecution. They all have when you talk about the ceasefire, boasting about the former gang members going in communities. And so, you know, our relationship with Better Family Life, many of those persons are convicted felons. When we work with them on gang extraction, I'll explain that, hey, so aside from all the work we do, we have a component where our gang intervention officers work alongside counselors at the Better Family Life, and will actually, if there's a kid that's been involved in some shootings, kind of a rough area, we've actually extracted, we've found places for this person to get out of that very hostile climate. So I mean, some of the examples are very graphic. I'll just describe one. Hey, there was a kid being at gunpoint, disavowing his gang affiliation, that type of thing, with his passport down. That was all fun of them. They all had guns. You could hear the guns being racked in the background. But James Clark, our Colonel Ronnie Robinson, put together a crew and extracted that kid and his family out of that house, which has been shot up in the past. So when something like that happens, you have to ask yourself, well, how many shootings? What's not measurable is how many shootings are not going to occur because you extract kind of a hostile situation.
And they sent us video of it so we can see it. You know?
All right. Okay.
If you don't mind, just, because I know you, and I'm willing to answer anything you want to ask about, but just to kind of talk about some of the things that we've added to the budget that we are concerned about, is there's a need for a person, or actually a group of persons. We're asking to increase our budget by 4 positions, all to work in what we're going to call our Sunshine unit. And the Sunshine request for the demand for the department have been extremely voluminous. People want all types of records. They want surveillance. They want everything. They want special orders. They want a host of things. I mean, I can't tell you how many per day. But I mean, we've been actually asked an employee to take a demotion not to have to deal with it. And so it'll be an attorney and 3 persons to actually have a unit to deal with the voluminous Sunshine requests that we have. The other one is a government service analyst that's going to work closely with our Gun Crime Intelligence Center. That person is going to kind of be working along with the task force. You all may have heard the fact that we are going to, the ATF has selected St. Louis to have a gun strike force. They work a lot with and I'm telling the people in this room, because this is not public information, but
well, we have reporters all around the room, so you know it's public.
In the jump. So in other words, hey, there's a lot of forensics that can be done with federal funds that we wouldn't have access to in St. Louis. And so when you have a task force that comprises a bunch of federal agents, they have a lot more resources than we have to detect gun crime and really focus on the persons that particularly are repeat offenders. So that's kind of.
Yeah, and let me just add on that, because, you know, it goes back to the fact that we're down so many officers. You know, I have asked, and I tell you, I cannot thank our federal partners enough. We have DEA on the Metrolink. We have the United States Marshals doing search warrants. We have the ATF, we have the FBI, we have all of these federal agents that are partnering with us to try to address some of the issues. But again, it's not sustainable. I can't keep them. We've had them at least for a year now, but I just can't expect that they will that they will continue to stay infinitum. And so, you know, so we have to address this ourselves. This is a St. Louis City problem, and St. Louis City has to fix this problem by giving us an opportunity to expand our pool so we can get people to come in here and do the work.
And 2 other quick points. And so I know that overtime in the past has been a challenge. I know we've went well beyond what we were allocated in overtime. I want you to know that between this time last year, we've decreased our overtime usage by $500,000. So that's something that the judge has been working very closely with me. We've implemented some things with respect to the usage of overtime, and so we are working positively to address that. And then finally, I just want to point, this is just a point to make. So in particular, our communications division is really kind of grappling with maintaining dispatchers. There's a 10,000 dispatchers in the county make $10,000 more than our dispatchers. Just something to consider, and we're having some issues trying to staff that. Obviously, our dispatchers work a lot harder than the ones in the county, but what we're seeing a pattern is that people get trained, use our place as a training ground, and then go out there where they can make some more money. It's just common. Just to piggyback on what the judge said, hey, the thing about residency is that we're the only law enforcement agency in the region that has a residency requirement. John Belmont would tell you that residency, he would admit that he's probably getting a lot of people that I would ordinarily get if we didn't ask people to move in the city. And I realize that that's a challenge. I know we've grappled about that years and years, but at the end of the day, I would think at least for a public safety exception, when people talk about the need for more officers in the communities, I'm trying to keep you as safe as possible. I really need that deficit to be made up as soon as possible.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll open the questions, and once again, please keep questions pertinent to the Ways and Means budget. Thank you very much. Alderman Carl.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm having kids in the department, I'm obviously a little familiar, but the dispatchers right now, they're on mandatory overtime.
That's correct.
No other way to do it.
Right, but, I don't know. I mean,
Well, so it's mandatory. What we've mandated is that we have asked them, we need you to work at least 8 hours additional per pay period. And so, but we are at the point where we're really saying, hey, we really need you to help us with this.
But why are we not hiring dispatchers? I mean, I personally know that, it's not 100% germane, but it's a little bit. But I have sent people, say you ought to go in and look at becoming a dispatcher because it's a good place to start, and yet they're rejected.
Well, there's
people with good background.
Yes, sir. So the screening process actually starts with the Department of Personnel. So I would tell you that I would hope that they're not turning down very qualified people, because we're really in desperate need of them.
Yeah, they're not getting rejected on our end.
All right, Alderman.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderwoman Howard?
No questions.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Hubbard?
Real briefly, what's the base starting salary for police officers, like in the academy?
So while they're in the academy, I believe it's like 42,000, and when they graduate, it's going to be up to around 48,000. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I didn't look through this as good as I should have, but how are we doing regarding the training budget? Or are we going above and beyond as far as like the racial equity training? I know like upper echelon staff had gotten it at first. Is that being passed down to like some of our front contact officers as far as the training?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. The program that we implemented. So we're working with actually Washington and St. Louis. You are willing to put together a program that we actually can teach in the academy. Some of our supervisor managers went to the common training that all the city employees went to.
Implicit bias is a big issue for me and something that we have to address. And so we are doing that.
Okay. And one other question. In regards to recruitment, just this morning I heard an ad on the radio, and it was good. I was impressed with that. You can tell it really. You guys are really trying to do a good job as far as recruiting people in our community, because kids in our community, if every interaction they have with a police officer is a negative one, chances are they don't want to become a police officer. So I commend you on your efforts for that, and I would just like to see us educate the public more. I know the media does a horrible job and paint our city as like the scariest place in the world, and that hurts tourism and everything else. So I like when you all are in front, not necessarily you two, but are in front of the camera educating the public on really what's going on. And it doesn't help us at all when we have these media outlets scaring people, saying don't come outside because it's unsafe. I hate that.
Right.
Really
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because we just got finally able to hire two new media persons, both of them one of them used to be at Channel 5, the other one used to be at Channel 4. I think that's going to really improve our media output, our media relations, and hopefully the imaging that we have on the department.
great, and it would be good if they reach out and do it on social media too, because many people don't watch the news anymore. They take what's on social media as the gospel.
That's the
And
Bible,
people are
yeah.
totally afraid to come outside,
Yeah.
and that's not good for our
That drives
community.
me crazy.
So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Murphy.
Can I talk about park rangers, or is that coming up? in a different-
Yeah, well, that belongs to us.
Well, I know it belongs to you. I didn't know if we were gonna do something
No,
separate.
we'll do it
Okay.
separate, under police.
Those are my concerns, is I want to know if the contingency for park rangers was up to snuff, do we have the numbers? And what exactly are their, what is their authority? Do they have the power to arrest, to detain? I get different messages from people that talk to park
Yes,
rangers
ma'am.
when they see them,
They have the power to detain.
to detain.
Yes, ma'am, they do not have the powers of arrest.
So that means they can handcuff someone?
They can handcuff
They
someone.
can handcuff someone and then they would call the police?
That's exactly
Okay.
right.
So they do not have the power to arrest?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and then how many park rangers are we short? Because I know it's a 24/7 thing supposedly.
You know, that, now, I don't think that there's a grade shortage in, I'd have to check that out. I can
Okay.
certainly get back with you, that number.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to know.
yeah, so we need to get park rangers in Fairground Park and O'Fallon Park.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, all of that.
yeah, so we need to get them out there. And I think that I appreciate Alderman Collins Muhammad really putting that at the forefront. And he's made it clear, hopefully you're seeing police officers or park rangers more often, but yeah.
Okay, well, that was my concern, because constituents said, they were told by, I believe, park rangers that they have no power over something or whatever. And I wanted to know what they can do. Do they carry a gun?
Yes,
They do
Yes, ma'am.
carry a gun.
They are
So
armed.
they're authorized, they're trained?
right. They're, how about, the best comparison is they're licensed security personnel.
Okay,
And they are armed security
they are
personnel.
armed.
Maybe like our marshals.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's good to know that they can actually detain. And then I said, so that's good to know, and I would like that.
And I may have that before the meeting, I'm texting,
Oh.
I may have it before the meeting.
Okay, and then traffic, is the traffic control, is that division part of the police department up to snuff? One of our biggest complaints, aside from maybe overall crime, which is generally exaggerated or whatever, with social media, is speeding and running stop signs. And it seems like we do not get any regular traffic control.
We can-
I always tell people, no one speeds through Bella Villa. And I worked in Bayless,
Yeah.
and most of the time, there isn't a cop there.
Yeah, we can
But they've
provide,
established a
Yeah,
reputation,
they've
have
established
done
a
it enough,
reputation.
and we don't have that anymore.
yeah, we can provide you with a traffic safety report. I think that you'll be shocked that, these guys have given out 3,400 tickets, 3,500
Right.
tickets, 8,000 tickets. I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised at the level of work that they're doing. So we'll make sure that we get that traffic safety report out to you. I know that I sent it out to a couple of the aldermen
Okay.
that questioned me with respect to that, and they were just surprised.
Oh, I don't doubt that they don't have enough tickets to give out. I'm sure they find out. I think my question is, I would like to see them in the neighborhoods on a regular basis.
Right.
Like, I know I have not seen a cop on Holly Hills probably doing traffic in 2 years or more. And we know somebody, we both live right by Holly Hills, and we can attest to that.
Racetrack.
That's what I mean by if someone would come around on a regular basis, not every Tuesday at 3, because then of course we know, but if they could count on Leona, Holly Hills, Bates, Morganford, I understand they do Gravois, and we see the police on the highway, which I don't even understand why, because I would thought the highway was under highway patrol, the highway patrol's mandate, and I can see why to assist in accidents and that, but
Yeah.
I think you're meant to speed on a highway.
Well, we don't want
Not down Leona.
we don't want you speeding on the highway. One of my
Well, highways are built for speed.
One of my problems
My
that-
streets are not.
Yeah, one of my problems is that I haven't been able to re-engage the State Highway Patrol to patrol in the city of St. Louis,
That's-
east of Goodfellow. Haven't been able to engage them to go back on 55 or go on 64. So I've had conversations with the State Attorney General. I've had conversations with the State Highway Patrol. I've had conversations with the governor of the state of Missouri. I will have additional conversations because I think it's imperative, and I think it's only fair. We pay taxes in the city of St. Louis just like other municipalities, and we should have state highway patrol support. And so I'm very, very hopeful that we will be able to re-engage.
I hope so. I don't know how that happened, that state highway is a state
I'll
highway.
talk to
Doesn't
you
matter if it
offline,
goes
I'll
through
talk
the
to you
city.
offline about that.
And we can
Okay.
certainly add Holly Hills and Bates in particular to the traffic rotation. We do have to kind of stay on some of the main thoroughfares. though,
Well,
because
I understand
A lot of
that, but I think
the
it's-
smaller streets are more difficult, the bigger streets are
Well,
what we're
I
trying
don't
to
think they're
focus
not small. Bates, Holly Hills are not small. We have people walking past, back and forth the park, and they can't get across the street. And, or in the late hours, you'll have the speeding and the doing wheelies here and there. And, I often say that sometimes the bigger streets are more conducive to a car actually going faster, not a city street. And that's where we never see anybody anymore. The residential streets and, things like, but anyway, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief, for for what I consider kind of a shift in resources to some of our more high-crime areas. I've certainly noticed an uptick in patrolling in my part of the 3rd District, which has a higher crime rate, and the results have been remarkable. You see the crime really decreasing in some of the higher crime areas in my neck of the woods, and so we're grateful for that. Along the same lines, though, along the traffic, the traffic is in speeding drivers is completely out of control.
Okay.
If what I'm hearing is that we are implementing traffic measures and we're giving tickets, it's not working. And we are very limited here at the Board of Aldermen with what we can do, besides receive voluminous complaints from our residents about the fact that people are driving 80 miles an hour in residential streets, not stopping at stop signs, total disregard for any level of public safety when it comes to operating a vehicle.
Operating vehicles that
Are there any
And
streets that
the
are
other thing is
really,
Merrimack, Broadway, South Jefferson, but it's also every single neighborhood street, which is even more alarming. Kids are walking down the streets, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, it's literally every street. And so we can put humps here and there, but it does a very limited amount of, it has limited utility to really slow traffic down. So my question is, what can we do? What should we, if we're issuing as many tickets as we can, which I'm not sure that we are, to be honest with you, because I agree, I haven't seen traffic control.
I'll share the information with you, Alderwoman. We were up in South Broadway on Grand and Grand and Broadway. Very, very difficult area over there. Some of you may have seen some of the violence there. We did a road diet over there that some of the business people didn't like. But what it did was it reduced probably 70-80% of the crime that was in that area. And so there are things that we may be able to do with the roads themselves to slow the traffic. But those are things that we have to get streets involved in, we have to get a lot of folk involved in. But we found that the road diet on Broadway, on North Broadway and Grand, has made a significant difference in that area. So those are things that I think that we would have to have others at the table with respect to the enforcement of traffic. To narrow that question, I think that, again, we'll provide you the information, show you what's happening, show you the speed tickets, the enforcement in your area. We'll be happy to show that with just the whole city, with all of you, and we'll get that information to you.
I think that would be super helpful to see the tickets, but also the traffic accidents. I know we have several on Merrimack, for example, that have been really bad lately. And road shootings, we've had several instances of not only ATVs, but people in vehicles outside of windows with AK-47s and other, and if we had traffic enforcement on those roads, I think that would cut down on just the blatant, disregard for law in a general sense on some of those areas. And if we can have a commitment to meeting with the streets department maybe and having some recommendations to the Board of Aldermen, to our administration on how we can, in a general sense, work to slowing traffic across the city in all of our neighborhoods, because I don't think it's limited to any one of our communities. You mentioned programs that you would be supportive, besides ceasefire. Could we ask for what those programs are? And maybe now, since we're talking about budget, it's not the appropriate time, but in public safety committee hearing, start to really discuss some of those things. One thing I didn't see in here was the lawsuits associated with the police department and some of those actions. I know they're not included in the police department budget, but
Yeah, I'll be happy to provide you with a confidential list. You know, it's just lawsuits are lawsuits, and so we just have to be very careful.
But I'd like to make sure that we're taking a good look at how that's not only impacting our citizenry, but our budget, and maybe work towards making changes within the police department to prevent those lawsuits moving forward.
I'll be happy to share that information.
Okay, and then the last question I have is regarding this a $13 million claim from the police officers union regarding back pay for recruits.
Well, lawsuits are lawsuits.
So that is a
And so
similar,
you need $145 to file a lawsuit. And so anybody can file a lawsuit. And so what we have is we've been sued by the POA.
Sure.
And those are the types of lawsuits that we defend.
and then I'll use this opportunity, since it is Jeff Ford of the POA, to reiterate my displeasure with him serving in any capacity with regards to the city of St. Louis. He is not only providing us with this lawsuit, but has diminished our relationship with the police department in a general sense. And I forgot, Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Budgetary.
It is totally budgetary. If you look at the salaries of uniform positions here, we not only have an increase in salary for our police officers, which we authorized through Proposition P, but we have a reduction in overall salaries to uniform positions from budget 2019 to budget 2020, going from $56,500,000 to $54 million. And I'm curious, does this reflect a reduction in overall staffing? How is a reduction of $2 million in salaried uniform positions following such a large increase in?
So
Okay.
there's more money in other funds that we charge police officer salaries to. Plus we reflected more attrition savings because we continue to have.
We've continued to lose officers.
We are losing officers by retirement, so that's attrition. I am controlling overtime. Sam had a policy at one point when he was chief of police that you didn't have to get your overtime authorized. Well, that's changed.
Thank you for that.
And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the appropriate restraints and restrictions in place. So there are a lot of variables here.
Okay. And again, thank you for your service to our city. I know it's not an easy job to wear a uniform in our city, so thank you very much.
Just want to update the Alderman, so we're 5 rangers short.
5 rangers
Right,
short,
and
okay.
they have active applications, so we're hoping to fill those positions.
Okay, summer coming.
Yes, some coming.
Alderman Mohammed, you're next.
Alderman Muhammad.
Oh, no, Mohammed. Spencer. Yes,
Okay.
We're going by seniority, sir.
Sounds great. You say it was a decrease in overtime budget by $500,000?
Yes, sir.
I would like to see the $500,000 back in overtime, because I think overtime pay can be utilized for neighborhoods that need extra police. That's all.
Well, that's what I was trying to, was that we just happen to, with things we've implemented, we've improved by 500,000.
So
Not that we took it away.
it's not a deficit.
It just hasn't been spent.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we're doing better. We're doing better with our spending.
Well, let's spend it in the 21st war.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Judge or Chief, do you see any significant volatility in your management of any outside contracts or vendors, any big expenses potentially coming your way that you might need to manage around?
I don't expect that we're gonna have any big expenditures that's going to impact the general revenue of the city. We're gonna have some major expenditures, but they will be made by the St. Louis Police Foundation.
Okay.
Maybe some bonding, but I don't expect for those expenditures to come from the general revenue.
So not necessarily then an increase in potential cost vis-a-vis the contracts or outside services or vendors you might engage?
Agreed.
Chief, real quick, you touched on dispatchers, and I don't know if that's reflected. Maybe the line item around communications in Fund 1010 here, which is also under contractual or other services. Quite a significant increase there, particularly for what you requested and what's budgeted for upcoming fiscal year. Is that radios? Can you just break down that communications category and what vendors are associated with that?
Dave, do you happen to see that?
Which account are you talking about?
I'm at 5636 on page 26. Well, I don't know if you've got the same thing I do.
Yeah. So Paul did a good job of cutting this last year. And we need money to pay the actual phone bills of the police department. So we did have to ask for an increase, as well as our IT services that require communications money.
Alderman Oldenburg, we are looking to purchase radios.
Okay.
It is about an $8 million, $9 million cost, where I expect that a great portion of that cost will come from the foundation. And so when I say that I don't expect any major expenditures that really affect the general revenue, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So, but this communications line item is
Paying telephone bills and
paying
other stuff.
telephone bills and vendors that you purchase radios from too, or not?
No,
No.
radio's $9 million.
Got it. That's paying telephone bills. That's easy enough for me to understand. Last question. How is the Real-Time Crime Center funded? And where would any reflection of that be within this budget?
Personnel is personnel.
Okay.
And so
But
the
in terms of
Real-Time Crime
capital
Center,
equipment?
the St. Louis Police Foundation
Okay.
has, the St. Louis Police Foundation, for those of you that don't know, they buy our guns, they buy our holsters, they buy our vests, they buy our building, they buy our televisions, they buy everything.
Yep.
I mean, we don't, I use the police budget to pay salary and for things that they think that we should fix, like the toilet.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm at the foundation.
Yep. No, and I think this is an important point just quickly to underscore in terms of capital expense and we had a conversation around cameras. We're going to probably continue to have a conversation around cameras. I think the consensus is among a lot of us here on the Board of Aldermen that they're incredibly impactful. That they help the police do their jobs, they actually keep police safe, they keep residents safe. They help with convictions, all the things that I think we want to see in terms of fighting crime around the city. Would it be welcomed if we could figure out a way to potentially fund and have a consistent stream of revenue that could go to the, whereby the professionals in technology and otherwise could tell us, here's where we can really cinch our web up, right? So in other words, I'm thinking a couple, $250,000 a year where the Real-Time Crime Center directly, not through Ward Capital, but through kind of budgeted dollars, could go out, or through capital improvement dollars, could go out and purchase the cameras to fill in the gaps where you all need to create that system that makes us all, okay.
And actually, we're doing some of that.
Sure.
We're doing some of that based upon analytics. And so we're looking at analytics, determining where the biggest corner, the most dangerous corner, where the crimes are. And so whether you have Ward Capital money to put a camera there or not, we're doing that because we're looking at data,
Through
we're looking at
grants and other
analytics,
things,
and
right.
we're looking at, we're doing it through grants. I'm looking at it and asking the foundation for cameras. Shot spotters, LPRs, all of those types of things are paid for by the foundation.
My point is, above and beyond that, I would love to try to do the hard work here at the Board of Aldermen or otherwise to find a more consistent or sustainable stream of proceeds whereby we could do even more of that. Because I think we all can agree that probably a camera in North City helps folks in South City and
Absolutely.
vice versa, right? It's a
Absolutely.
network that's set up
That's
here.
right.
We're not, okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd.
No question.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
All right, everybody wants to know if you want to be a real policeman, you'd be a policeman in the city of St. Louis.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys. So we'll get through the fire department, and we're trending in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
If I can,
You're
if,
gonna make it. You're gonna make it.
maybe, you know, jigging is awfully loquacious, you do know that, right?
We'll just tell them no and everything.
Make it much easier.
Kim,
I'm fasting, he's wrong, y'all.
can you?
I'm so hungry.
They said not to eat together.
Come on in, chief.
It's warmed up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Again, thank you very much, Chief Dennis Dickerson. You all know him.
Save the best for last.
We left. Well, next to last. I think that we have the best fire department in the Midwest. In fact, we are oftentimes criticized with respect to the infrastructure in the city of St. Louis, the elements in the city of St. Louis. But I'm not sure whether you realize that if there was a fire in downtown Clayton that was 3 stories high, Clayton Fire Department could not fight the fire. We gotta go out and we have to fight the fire. If there is a water rescue in this area, we gotta go out and we gotta do the rescue. If something happens on any interstate in the area, it's the St. Louis Fire Department that has to respond. And so, I am just always really, really proud when I have an opportunity to talk about our fire department. And so, now I've teed you up really nicely, so don't screw it up, right? You on it.
Okay, well, thanks for spending the time to listen to us today. It's been a long morning, isn't it? The budget's before you, I guess. Our budget that's been presented to me is $62,195,664 as it sits right now. I hit the right number?
You said 1,000, it's 62 million.
62 million? Okay. 62,195,000.
Yep.
It starts on 214.
Thank you.
It's a lot of pages.
A lot of pages, it's a big department.
Yeah.
Somebody one truck idea.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
62 million.
63.
Chairman Vollmer, we'll just take questions.
Take questions.
Okay. We all know what you do it well, so that's fine. We'll start with Alderman Clark.
I do, and maybe because I'm more up on firefighter stuff, people call me and talk to me. It seems like in this budget, we're cutting medical stuff like pills and stuff, Narcan. So when we go out to a scene and somebody overdoses, we're just gonna say, sorry, our budget's been cut. We're putting our firefighters at risk because we're not gonna update the air apparatuses. I mean, the stuff that's cut out of this budget, radios, give me a break. This budget's a mess. And yes, am I proud of our firefighters? Yes. Then why do we want to put them in danger? And if we don't find the extra money to put back these things, we're putting the public in danger because we're gonna show up and say, we can't afford the Narcan, you just die. That's how it works. And I'm very, very, very upset with this budget when it comes to fire. I'm upset when it comes to police too, but to cut safety items, and again, I'm very much aware because I talk to the guys, and they do have, at least call and make me aware, but this budget, when I look through it, cuts a whole lot of safety issues for the firefighters and for the public, and that's really all I got to say.
I appreciate your frustration.
Want me to respond to that?
If you'd like to respond, that's fine.
To respond. Yeah, we did receive a cut on the original request that we put in, and I'll start with the drugs and medicine. And I don't know if you could follow along with the line item. It's a 52,3700. The actual line item is 5237031, which is drugs and medicines. And yes, Narcan is costing us a fortune. Because of the opioid crisis, we do have a big issue. That fund was cut by about $80,000. That also includes some of the other medicines that we use on a daily basis. And if you've been following along and reading some of the news articles regarding medications, the drug manufacturers have taken the opportunity, because of the time, to increase the cost of these drugs to a point where it is obnoxious. We use EpiPens. Narcan's gone up over the past 5 years from about $19 a dose to about $60 a dose. Another drug we use quite extensively is, we have a high incident of asthma in this area, and we provide albuterol treatments. It's gone through the roof, almost tenfold. So they're taking the opportunities to make their money off the emergency medicine services in all cities, because they realize that the first responders, the EMS, the fire department, we're the primary care people now.
Yeah.
And they know we're doing it, and they're making a ton of money off us. And my budget with the drugs and medicines is taking a hit because of that. So we're about 80,000 short in that column. The request was for 250,000, we received 170,000. Similar in another account, which was medical supplies. All the tubing, the delivery apparatus that we use to deliver drugs, whether it's different types of needles, different type laryngoscopes, whatever we use to provide this type of service, they've taken that opportunity to raise the cost of this stuff too. And they're doing it every 3, 4, 5 months. It's not every year. It's continuing. We're about $75,000 short in that department also, which is the 5237068. I don't see an end in sight. They're going to keep raising it until they're able to control it some way. And right now, they're hitting it hard. So, what else you talking about? SCBA's. SCBA's are our self-contained breathing apparatus, the things we wear on our backs when we go into a building that we use every day. Our SCBA's right now are 10 years old. They're at their life maximum. So what that means is the company that we bought them from, Scott Manufacturing, they're no longer making parts for these apparatus. So we have to buy, they find them online, we have to re-engineer the parts, so those things have gotten a whole lot more expensive. So we anticipated the cost to replace the electronics and some of the parts on these is going way up, and we got this cost from the manufacturer itself. We need to replace our SCBA's soon. They're only meant the last 10 years. They're only certified for 10 years. So we really need to have that conversation, which I am in conversation with Todd Waltham and some of the other people to get those replaced. It is on the horizon.
It sounds like a definite necessity.
But these costs are going to go up this year. And we're about $70,000 short in that account. That's 5237147.
I just would like a follow-up comment, and that's because this meeting is taped, and these are facts. The minute we go out and we don't deliver Narcan, we're gonna be sued, which is gonna cost a lot more than this.
We understand that.
Okay, I'm just saying as a group, we need to find this.
So legally, we have to. I don't think so.
Okay.
Anyway, that's really
Try it, for sure.
Okay.
You can sue anyone.
Alderman Howard?
I guess the only question I have is that, knowing the increased cost of drugs, and I know some drug companies have programs where they provide drugs at a discounted rate, has anybody appealed for any kind of grant money or anything that would supplement that? Or
We
maybe
have.
pairing with health and hospitals?
We have. With the Narcan issue, we did get some doses from the state, which we had to retrain all of our members because it was a different type of delivery system. The Narcan primarily came in 2 type of ways of delivery. One was like a nasal spray, the other was an IM, intramuscular type dosage. These were like a dual-dose EpiPen. So they were auto injectors meant to be used by civilians, but we got doses from the state on that. Yes, we do look for grants to get Narcan, but it's a very popular
It's a
grant,
very
if you will,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
almost impossible to get them. So,
Yeah, because I know people that are, underserved and may not have access to drugs, they have programs for, that, and I thought, well, maybe because we're a population with primarily, underserved, poor population, maybe there would be something
well,
available.
the opioid crisis doesn't just hit the under.
No, I know
privileged.
that, I know that.
We average about 10 opioid calls a day.
And I mean, a lot of them probably aren't people that live here in the city.
You're absolutely correct.
John, you have to get
They're
excused for
coming
2
to
o'clock.
take care of business.
Thank you, Chief.
And the
I have
other
to go
thing
to
is,
Dr.
what are we
Reed.
doing to try to recruit more EMTs and emergency, servers and?
Right, we're down about, right now, about 8 EMTs and about 15 or 16 paramedics. The hang sheet is open right now, is listed on the Department of Personnel. They have to test for it. I don't believe they have a test schedule right now. The problem is, we hire a paramedic or an EMT. They work with us for 2, 3, maybe 5 years. They're running 15, 20 calls per shift. They're getting the experience like they can't get anyplace else. A paramedic's pay is about average with the rest of the region, if you will. But
Oh, really?
we're about average.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but the problem is, they go to another service,
And they're doing less.
and they're doing
making
a
more.
tenth of the work.
Right.
So it's tough to keep. Also, within 5 years, at other services, that's where the pay comes in. Once you're at 5 years, then their pay goes way up.
Right.
So, but anyway.
So is there anything
We hit the
can
high
do
schools, we hit
that
the colleges,
I
we-
mean, to retain them. I mean, they're coming in and they're getting valuable experience and then they're walking. So, I
Right.
mean, is there anything that you
Well, I'm gonna
see
point-
could be
We've tried a
to
lot.
keep them?
I think a good starting point, I did write a couple letters to the Director of Personnel trying to get the residency waived, which would help
That's a
me
recurring
get
theme.
Yeah, there's a recurring.
I can't even get them to apply. And a lot of them want to work for us, but they can't. They don't want to move their family into the city. They can't find a house right away. And we give them a year to do it, but they still can't do it. We have them, they'll work for us for a year.
And they're gone.
I can't find a place.
Well, and some are reluctant to even come in because they don't want to have to make that, I mean, saying, well, I'm not going to move, I'm never going
Right.
to move, so why do I want to commit to something I know I'm
And
not
if we
going to
could lift
follow?
that would help us tremendously.
Well, we're working on that. I'm
Okay,
having a
I
hearing
appreciate
next
that.
Wednesday, so if you
Yeah.
would like to come and testify, I'd appreciate that. Next Wednesday in the
I'll be out
morning
of
at
town
10
next
a.m.
Wednesday.
Well, I think
I'll have
some of
somebody
your members are
testify.
coming.
Okay.
All right, no further questions? Alderman Hubbard?
One quick question, how, is the department doing on overtime?
Because of our lack of manpower, our overtime is way up. I'd say we're at about $4 million right now in overtime for last fiscal year.
I don't remember the
We're pretty
number. It
close,
was
yeah.
ungodly.
Is it up from last year still, or?
No, I think it's about online from last year.
Okay.
When I put in the budget, I request what I think I'm going to use on overtime. I don't lowball it, if you will. I put in, here's what I'm going to use, and that gets cut by 2/3 every year. I'm down about 8 firefighters right now. The next 2 months are going to be big months, because I've got about 15 to 20 guys that can retire. So we do have money in this budget to hire another class. But our overtime is about where it runs every year.
And, what's the number of firefighters that are at the airport?
62.
62?
Yes, ma'am.
And you think that's a good need? Do they require some specialized training to
It
be
does.
at the? Okay.
It does. You don't get moved out to the airport until you have a minimum of 5 years on the fire department. And then when you go to the airport, you have to go through what's called ARF training, which is Aircraft Rescue Firefighter Training, which is done either in Norfolk, Virginia, or down in Dallas, Fort Worth. And
Okay.
that's a 2-week process. Then you have other FAA training that you have to, but yes, and once we put somebody out there, we keep them there because the training is very expensive.
Okay. And is there like a aging workforce? Do you expect that there'll be some vacancies at the airport, or the people there, have they been there a long, long time?
We've
or-
got about, I'll say, 4 to 5 individuals that within the next 18 months will have the ability to retire.
Okay. All right, no further questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman. And Alderwoman Murphy?
So you said you're down, how many firefighters?
About 8 right now.
It's not too bad.
Not too bad, but we've got Our next couple months are big.
Oh, you got some.
Yes,
Okay.
we know we're.
So the overtime isn't necessarily because you're down just those 8 people?
No, the overtime is based on, they're also filling spots over at EMS.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
that's where
they
the,
write
that's
EMS.
where
Right.
the short, I get you. I was
Right.
gonna say that didn't, I was just trying to make that straight. And then when we said earlier, like, did I know our fire department is up to snuff and everything. When we aid other community, are we compensated for that ever? Or is it just, it's all just
It's a.
back and forth for everybody?
Right, we have a
Reciprocal, we do
mutual aid
most of the
agreement.
reciprocating.
Right, because when we need assistance, they come in, like we had.
Right.
Say the big fire we had a couple years ago at Park, we had to fill our firehouses. And the county comes in, we had the fire at the Carpels Museum about a month and a half ago.
Yes, that's
And I had 100+ firefighters there, and they came in, and there's an automatic fill, if you will, once we
Right.
call them, they know which firehouse
To
is
go
the
to-
staff.
Okay,
Yeah, it's automatic both ways.
sounds good. Okay, thank you, that's all.
All right. Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief. I know you guys do a lot of work in my ward, and really grateful. We just had a really big fire on Chippewa, and you guys were out there at 4 in the morning, preventing it from spreading to the whole entire block, which really was very, very possible given the accelerants used in that fire. Along the same question, when we don't charge for Narcan or the use of it, I mean, if I've got a medical emergency and I call 911 and I transport to the hospital for an emergency heart attack, I get a bill for that.
Right,
And if I'm insured, my insurance pays for it.
correct.
If I've got a person experiencing an overdose situation and we administer Narcan and we are attending to them with a fire truck and a whole bunch of other personnel, are we invoicing them? Are there insurance company for that action?
Unfortunately, Narcan is one of the drugs that we cannot charge for because of the discount price we buy it. Also, with the Narcan delivery system, most of your drug dealers don't have health insurance.
Well,
I was gonna say, most
I
people
realize
don't.
that, but I mean,
No, we do charge. I mean, we have deliverables that we charge for. I guess we established that last year, where we actually started charging for certain drugs that we use, you know.
but I mean, even the attending, you know, I mean, this.
Just going to
Going
the
to the-
scene, they
Oh, the
charge.
transport's charged.
The transport.
The transport's always
They
charged.
charge
But
even
if-
if they don't transport.
And they do, we do have a
We
fee
do.
for charging if there's a attended to but not transported.
Really? And so then are we generating any revenue?
Our
from that
revenue's
as
way
well?
up on EMS,
Okay.
absolutely.
And
No,
I'm just hoping we can recoup some of that.
We do. We try to recoup as much as we can, and like I said, our revenue is up. At one point in time where we were closing some ambulances down, not paying the overtime, we were watching our revenue numbers, and our revenue was starting to drop.
Okay.
You know, you have to, if I staff an overtime ambulance, it's gonna cost me about almost $700 for a shift, a 12-hour shift. That ambulance makes one run and an ALS status, that's a $1,500 fee. So they're averaging 10 to 15 runs per day. So it more than pays for the overtime that we're experiencing to bring in the revenue on the EMS side.
And that's critical that
ALS
we,
status.
advanced life support. And it's,
Oh.
the critical vacancies
That's where we
are
have-
paramedics.
Right,
See,
right,
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Because
Right, yeah.
no matter what you do on the back of the ambulance, if there's not a paramedic in there, we
Can't
cannot
administer,
invoice
yeah.
ALS.
And-
We can invoice
BLS.
basic life support.
Which is
It's a lower rate, but,
And quite a few of my firefighters are paramedics, so that's why they work the overtime on the ambulance.
right.
And are those air things, those, that back, you know?
The SCBA's, self-contained
SCBA's,
breathing
yeah.
apparatus.
Are they included in your ask here in this budget? How much do those cost, and are we looking at, put them
There's
on
two
the?
parts to that. One was the SCBA for the parts, and that line item was 5237,147. And that was SCBA replacement parts. We asked for 100, let me go back to it.
165.
We asked for 165, we got 95,000.
Is that, and then, but
That's-
the replacement, you mentioned we've gotta get part, you know.
It's gonna take me a year to replace the SCBA's minimum once we start the process.
And
So we
that's-
still gotta pay for this. I still gotta pay for parts.
But I mean, is the beginning of the process to replace the entire fleet of them?
Yes.
Included in here?
No.
And how are we going to start that process for you?
Where is that included?
To replace them all?
Yes.
That's still in discussion with
Okay.
how we're gonna use, where we're gonna find those funds. But
What
we-
is the total cost of that?
We're probably running about $5.5 to $6 million to replace all the SCBA's.
that a bond issue, or possibly?
That's one way of maybe funding that issue, but I think there might be other ways that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, keep us abreast of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very important part of your job, is keeping our.
Well, the other one, as Alderman Vaccaro was speaking to, was the SCBA maintenance part of it, which is $56,300. The contract cost on this thing, we asked for, and that was even cut. And I'm down about $40,000 in that account. The contract to repair all the SCBA's that we have right now is $395,250. And then we also have another contract that's for $25,000, which keeps all of our hazardous material up to speed. It's a contract, a company works on it for us. And that got cut by $40,000. So we asked for $420, got cut to $380.
What are the line items on the most important cuts that you have identified to keep you operating correctly?
Drugs and SCBA's.
Okay, those are,
There's two line items for the SCBA's.
52031, 5237068,
Right here.
5237147.
Right.
You got it.
Okay.
all right.
The nuns beat me, so I write things down all the time.
Appreciate the questions.
Appreciate what you do.
All right.
So we'll see what we can do. Thanks.
Okay, Alderman Muhammad's not present. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thanks, Chief. Just a quick question under contracts and other services around professional services, which is 5659. Big drop off there, so a savings there with the professional service vendors or outside contracts. Do you know off the top of your head what that savings might be attributed to and why it kind of was adjusted?
I have no clue what that is.
Okay.
Want to see it on this?
5659?
Yeah.
Contract, yeah, it went to 000.
Yeah, it went to 0.
135, expended
We like that.
18. Unless they moved it.
Was that wasn't part of the,
But you were allocated 13,000.
the
Right.
Medicaid contract?
That's what that was. No,
Yeah,
I got it.
we executed that contract, it was
That was
$135,000.
yeah, that was a one-time contract.
One-time contract.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if you want me to get in GMT or not.
I don't, it matters not to me.
Just a little bit if you would.
Okay, GEMT was something we worked on for about 4 years through the fire department, Kansas City Fire Department, St. Louis Fire Department. GEMT stands for Ground Emergency Medical Transportation. It's a Medicare, Medicaid drawdown fund, if you will. 6 other states in this country have it. Missouri is the 7th state to get it. It took us 4 years to get this ordinance through the state. It allows us to pull down the true cost of delivering emergency medical services to the population. So this got passed this year.
Great.
$135,000 was a cost to the consultants and the state to
Yeah,
get
to
this
put
through.
together, because the proposal
We're-
is so intricate. They
We're
capture
getting it
all your
back.
costs,
We
yeah.
got that funding back to the
Well,
city.
it sounds like in the long run, it's going to be
Right.
It's very much,
potential in terms of savings. We were able to draw that down.
but we got that money returned to us.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. I have no
Good
further
question.
All right, Alderman Boyd.
No.
Alderman Clark covered.
No questions, thank you.
All right, Chief. Now, on the SCBA's, once you were, they're 10 years is 10 years, even if when you replace parts, they don't recertify them for 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, 6 months. It's
No, it gets us in a really big
okay.
liability.
Well, that's, yeah. I was under the impression that all of a sudden you have another year because you got new parts on it. They're not certified. This is maintenance. All right. Very good, very good. I'm trying to see what we can do to get things done for you. If we have no further questions, we will, what your public say, I forgot what, yeah, I forgot you're handling it for Miss Virginia. All right, Chief, we're done with you, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We just had the overview for public safety.
Well, I think you got plenty of an overview. Did you want to, if you wanted to talk about Department 610, there's really no
Whatever you,
change.
no, okay.
What's 610?
I don't, I'm,
Director's office.
Director's office.
Oh, your office.
Yes.
Or I mean, yeah.
We can go over.
No, you're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll open up the questions real quick. If anybody has any questions about the director's office, Alderman Howard, you do first.
I have no questions.
Okay.
Can't ask any because I don't know where it is.
What page are we-
Yeah, it's the very first one is Department 610, our total.
What page?
General fund budget is $748,000, and then there's $1 million in, the usual $1 million in the Proposition S crime prevention program, and $325,000 in Proposition P for summer youth jobs. And the reason we increased that by $50,000 is because it was cut by $50,000 in Prop S. So we kept the allocation this year the same as last year.
Okay. All right then. So Alderman Howard, still no questions?
No question.
All right, Alderman Hubbard.
Real briefly, is this your entire staff?
Yes.
Okay, because whenever I go up there, it looks so thin for.
Oh, we're in 2 rooms though.
Oh, okay.
We're in 401 and 402.
Okay, okay. And what exactly is the job description for the government services analyst?
That is the person who will study, that's actually Kim over there.
Hi. Oh, okay, okay.
She gets a lot of her assignments directly from the judge. She does a lot of researching of best practices. She's usually the coordinator for the department on things like audits, internal and state. She will prepare responses for fiscal notes, not only for the director's office, but for the entire department. She will research subject matter. Did I say best practices? Did I mention that one yet? And just trends in public safety, like, you know, ambulances and little ambulances and big giant fire trucks and what other jurisdictions are doing.
And I also work when you go to Joel Collins with a question. He'll come to me and we'll work together.
Okay, you
And come up,
coordinate.
yeah, we coordinate and work closely with him in getting answers to the questions that y'all have about public safety. Or
Thank-
trying to get answers to the questions that you have about public safety.
All right.
Thank you, no further.
Okay, Alderman Murphy.
No questions, thank you.
All right, Alderman Spencer.
0.
All right, Alderman Thomas not present. Alderman Oldenburg.
No
There's
questions.
no outside contracts.
That's all right. He likes that, he looks for that line.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
No questions. Alderman Clark Hubbard.
No questions.
All right, I believe everybody's appetite's telling them that no questions.
Yeah,
Awesome,
that's right.
thank you so
No
much.
questions. Always
Thank you all.
kind.
We were-